What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another Changelog Analysis. Before we get into this, I know there are going to be a bunch of questions asking where's Luminous. Well, Luminous wants to do his own analysis. He will probably have Fluff, so if you want to help check out his analysis, then feel free. I mean, it'll probably be very, very insightful. Fluff is a very, very thoughtful individual. One of my favorite personal captains, but we'll probably go over a couple things that Lumi doesn't cover. I intend to cover some of the new heroes, and we are going to go over every single thing in the changelog. And some things, of course, will receive more attention than others, but with me is going to be Shredkid.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to go over this changelog. I woke up this morning, saw a changelog. Feels like Christmas. I got that red bicycle. I got that BB shooter gun. So I was really excited about this. It's like the best thing that can happen in Dota, really. So, you ready to knock this out?
Yeah, we'll get right into it. This is going to be more primarily focused on the competitive scene with a slight emphasis on with a slight sort of look into some of the public game environments, but keep in mind that this is going to be the changelog that will most likely be in place for TI3. But anyways, enough jibber jabber. Let's get right into this. This is going to be a long ass patch, and we're going to start with mechanic changes. So the first mechanic, which isn't released under gameplay slash cosmetics, but is something that I want to go over, are the bottle crow and the courier nerfs. So if you look on the item list, you can see bottle, while empty, bottle causes couriers to move 30% slower. Courier no longer block neutral creeps from spawning, thank god. And courier speed burst from 100% to 50% move speed bonus still reaches max speed. This is primarily a factor when carrying an empty bottle. Without an extra slow, couriers will still reach maximum move speed. Now, this is obviously directed to nerfing bottle crow as a mechanic. So, what do you think about this nerf? Is it enough?
This is, I'm pretty sure, is enough. Kind of just to shut down the non-aggression that goes on mid with most heroes. Like, you put a hero like Puck, Magnus, Queen of Pain, anybody with some spammable AoE mid, and they're just going to farm, and nobody's ever going to get to kill each other because you just regen off the bottle hits. Because you can't get a bottle crow in every minute and a half and then get top rune if it's up there, you can't actually do that, especially with other people needing to use a courier. You can't like move it around. So the heroes who are going to take the biggest hits off of this is Magnus, by far the biggest, but then probably Puck is going to take a little bit of a hit against the top tier other heroes mid who go well against her, like TA, like Quap. But the strong heroes get a lot stronger. It's just the strong heroes matchups against each other changes. So Quap, TA, yeah, those heroes, Puck, are all going to get just a little bit better because they can actually push people out of lane now. The losers of this patch, I would say, just from the Bottle Crow are the melee, but it's more about mid. There's side lanes too, right? I think we mentioned this.
Yeah, we talked about it just in before we started this discussion, but one of the things that is very prevalent in a lot of silent versus silent matchups is both the silent heroes tend to get bottles, whether it be something like a Windrunner, Magnus in the offlane, Ballard in the offlane. If they decide to go in that area, they like to get bottle, and so an interesting situation occurs where the courier will go mid, pick up the mid soul bottle, then transition to bottom lane, pick up that bottle or the off lane, and then go back to the fountain, and then they'll deliver it in a giant triangle. So this really does hurt the offlane quite significantly if it is a very, very frequent bottle user.
Yeah, so the way that this actually is going to sort of change things up is when you're having somebody in the off lane, a lot of times that bottle allows them to stay there against a superior laner. Maybe it's a Weaver solo, Luna solo, Gyro solo, whatever. But that bottle lets them stay in lane. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. So I don't think people are going to revert to the old Tranquil Soul Ring, which they used to do. But the point is, the safe lane solo is going to have an advantage in a 1v1 lane now, which means it's incentivized to actually do an offensive tri-lane. I think that this is a pretty big buff to offensive tri-lanes, aside from the nerf to like heroes like Magnus or just melee spammer heroes.
Just a couple more things before we are finished with this discussion, as this is definitely way too early to tell. Who knows what we might see? We might see, Pinor style double cur action, which is probably a bit doubtful, but I'm not too sure at this point. Again, it's way too early to call. But the main sort of big concern for me is a lack of versatility in the mid lane. I think Queen of Pain will be top tier mid, as she is extremely powerful in the mid lane position, and this also limits heroes like Night Stalker, Magnus, like you mentioned earlier, and other strong mids, even maybe potentially Beastmaster, although he has a long range nuke, so maybe not Beastmaster so much, but definitely Night Stalker and other heroes who really just can't handle the harassment that heroes like Queen of Pain can dish out.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
Yeah, and also just want to ask you this really quickly. Do you think this will lead to more dual lane mids?
No, not at all. There's two type of mid heroes. Oh shit, it's my dog. There's two type of mid heroes that you want to deal with. One is someone who doesn't get phased by dual lane, like a Puck, Queen of Pain type thing. They can just farm with nukes and be safe. And the other type of hero that you want mid is someone who just gets experience, like a Night Stalker, Beastmaster, whatever. So it doesn't matter. Why don't you talk about the next thing really quick? I'm going to mute my mic for 2 seconds.
Okay, so the next thing that we want to talk about in regards to mechanics are the ward changes. Initial stock now starts at 1 instead of 2 for observer wards. Now this is important because it frees up the jungle a lot. Usually when you see a competitive situation where some team is facing a Chen or an Enchantress, then sometimes the other team decides to ward off their jungle very heavily with the observer wards because it's cheaper than sentries, even though it does have a cooldown. So they can get more wards. They sometimes get 4 wards, block off the camps with a couple of observer wards, and they limit the jungle control by quite a bit. But now, since the initial stock only starts at 1 rather than 2, that means that the jungle is a lot more open, and that means the jungle is going to be, I think, probably a bit more important as well, because it's just going to be very, very dangerous to deal with junglers, as they will not have their creep camps blocked. They won't have to really invest in sentry wards as much, because if you decide to actually dedicate observer wards or sentry wards in terms of blocking off, well, if you use sentry wards, you can still, cause a bit of problem, but sentry wards, keep in mind, don't last nearly as long, and also they are more expensive compared to observer wards. But yeah, I mean, with observer wards being nerfed, that means that the jungler can actually get pretty much uninterrupted farm. So this will help heroes like Enigma, Chen, if they want to farm in the jungle, Enchantress, maybe in some unusual jungle heroes.
I think you only really use the obs to block the Chen Enchantress. I think Enigma can just, go to the other jungle. He's not really that phased by it, but it's a pretty significant buff to Chen and Enchantress, because that's just one way you can shut those heroes down. You got to do weird shenanigans with a courier and like a gem or sentries, and it's just terrible. So that's just pretty much a straight buff to Chen and Enchantress.
Anyways, also it might be a bit of a nerf to teams who just like placing a lot of wards at the beginning, but I mean, we don't really see 4 wards too often straight at the beginning.
No, not at all.
Anyways, moving on to more of the mechanics, we're going to look at Captain's Mode. Now, Captain's Mode bans change from 2 to 3, that is 2 in the first phase, and then 3 in the second phase, to 2, which is 2 bans, 2 picks, then 2 more bans, then 2 more picks, then 1 ban, 1 pick, and Captain Mode picks is just what I basically explained right there. And they also adjusted times. So, right now, I'm just going to talk about the times really quickly because this is probably the least controversial point. Teams in general get less time, but I think this is completely necessary because it also is very, very important in terms of making Dota a more spectator-friendly game to watch, because you do spend at least 10 minutes on most drafts in a lot of different cases. And also, this also means that as Dota adds more and more heroes, the possibility of getting more bans can potentially be there, because, I mean, you will have less time to go through it. So this does open up the possibility of adding more bans without actually increasing the amount of time that goes through it by a significant amount. Because right now it's 780, it's going to go down to 700, so even if you add an extra ban to the pool, then it'll probably go up to 760 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, very straightforward, but the big deal is the bans and picks changed from 2-3 in terms of picks, or bans that is, to 2-2-1. So this is a big deal, and I think you need to sort of put this in context of the last patch where he changed this. So Ice Frog identified a problem, and his problem was we're seeing the same heroes every game. So his way of changing this was, okay, we're going to give you 1 less ban at the beginning, and we're going to give you 1 more ban later. I don't think this worked. This is the thing I'm going to be really critical of this patch. Last patch, it didn't work, because what ended up happening was you couldn't ban out all the OP heroes. So one team takes 1 of the OP heroes, and then the other team takes 2 of the OP heroes, and then you go from there. Which means every first 3 picks, and I'm pretty sure every single person who watches competitive Dota can agree with me on this, it's just the same. Like, the picks are just the same for the first 3 picks. And then you ban out, like, all the mids in the back phase of the 3 bans, or all the safe lanes, or all the supports, whatever. And then you just pick up whatever's left in the pool with the 2 last picks. But the 5th pick is usually the surprise pick. That's when, a team like Alliance might pick a PA, or Liquid might pick a Slark. Like, you pick your signature hero that's kind of weird. You know what I mean? And now that there's another ban, I feel like a lot of teams are going to ban out, like, other teams' signature heroes. And I don't think that that's a good thing for spectating the game. I don't think it's a good thing for diversifying the hero pool. I think that people are going to use that ban to ban out like the weird counter that might appear to their strategy, and it just is going to force more homogenization of Dota heroes. I really don't like this. I've said it twice, and I think it's a huge mistake.
Yeah, and not only that, oftentimes in these games, even though this patch has been a lot more versatile just because heroes are more balanced in general, you do tend to see when you come down to the second pick phase, okay, you can try to ban out all the offlane heroes, but these pretty significant carry pool stuffed in the pool, so the other team can potentially have their choice of carries even if they can't get their offlane or mid, depending on how the bans actually went. Now, they can wait till the last pick to see what the other team actually needs and then ban like that. So I think this actually eliminates a lot of the strategic play that goes in Dota. Well, not a lot of it, it's definitely way too early to tell, but it does stifle creativity by a relatively significant amount, in my opinion.
I think you can be more creative with the bans, but people don't want to see heroes get banned. People don't get excited for, oh, look, they banned that hero. People get excited for picking the weird hero, picking the, Geomancer or whatever. So, again, I think we covered this one. I thumbs down this.
Okay, moving on to more mechanics. Deny experience and bonus experience / gold AoE is now the same as regular experience AoE, so they just normalized it so that the experience is constant all across the board, whether it be denies or just getting the experience in general. For hero experience bonus changed from 15 plus 6 times the level to 20 plus 5 times the level. And that means that you get more experience when you decide to gank early on rather than later on. So this helps to encourage more early game action, I think. And 5 hero experience bonus changed from 10 to 5, or 10 plus 5 times the level to 15 plus 4 times the level. Again, I think this encourages a lot more early game team fights because for the most part the early game is kind of passive.
It benefits again, this is another buff to tri-lanes just because of when you run tri-lanes, your supports are going to be under-leveled, so you want them to get up faster to, get to that, 8, 9, 10, 11 faster. Whereas if you do 2-on-1, people are going to be there anyway. But if you don't do that, basically, there is no real incentive with this change to do a 2-on-1 to get more experience on your supports because they're going to get it anyway with this change. So again, I feel like this patch, you're going to hear this in a lot of stuff I say, but I feel like this is just another push towards tri-lanes.
Well, I mean, it's 4 hero experience bonuses rather than 3.
Well, it's not in the tri-lane itself. It's just tri-lanes are going to lead to have heroes that are under-leveled, and under-leveled heroes benefit from this more than over-leveled heroes.
Definitely, definitely. Level 11 experience requirements reduced from 6,500 to 6,000. Level 12 experience requirements increased from 7,700 to 8,200. This means you'll get your level 2 ultimate faster, which tends to have a pretty big impact on the game. So I am actually a pretty big fan of this change because, again, it means for more spectacular team fights. It means for much more aggressive actions, I feel like, because you don't have to wait nearly as long. And I'm a big fan of this change because getting those level 2 ultimates usually have a pretty significant impact at that point in the game. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really add anything to that.
Okay, gold for ending a spree changed from 50 to 400 to 75 to 600, depending on, of course, the streak. So if you get a kill on a Beyond Godlike hero, then you are going to get a whole lot of gold for getting that kill. So I think this was necessary because you need some sort of comeback mechanic. And this is
the
definitely...
nerf to snowball heroes, Queen of Pain, Templar Assassin, those heroes that rack up those big scores, but maybe if you don't have a true carry, you kill their snowball hero, and all of a sudden you're back in the game more than you were.
Right. So moving on, buyback cooldown increased from 5 to 6 minutes. Not too sure. Buyback cooldown is always an iffy issue because either a team will just wait the extra minute, or a team might play more aggressively, knowing that if they do force a buyback, then the other team will be out of commission for the next 6 minutes. So I don't know. Buyback is just such a tricky mechanic. It's pretty difficult to say how this will actually impact the game, but it'll definitely mean that in the late game, carries will probably play more tentatively because usually in Dota, safety first is the motto for most teams.
Well, this is again a nerf to that big 4 protect 1 safe lane farmer defensive tri lane strategy, or where you're just protecting one hero and like putting everything on him. You see some Chinese teams do it. Burning, I think, is known for just he plays the farmer and that's it. Although I think that actually might be changing now. But a lot of teams just have that one carry and that's it. Now, if your one carry, gets ganked and then or dies at the beginning of a team fight, you might be screwed. So I think this is sort of encouraging, maybe a dual core, tri-core strategy, which again, you run the offensive tri-lane, you have the safe lane farmer, and you have the mid. So again, I feel like just another push in that direction.
Towers no longer have separate bounty values when creeps or allies get the last hit, so it's normalized. That means before, if the hero got the last hit, actually your teammates get a reduced amount of gold because let's say you kill a tier 1 tower and you don't get the last hit. That means your entire team gets 250 gold spread out equally. If you do get the last hit, then you get something like 450, 500 gold, but your team gets 200 gold. So now this way it's constant. And yeah, the hero on the last hit gets a little bit less, but that is equaled out just because you get more gold in general if you do pick up the last hit. So I think that's a pretty,
I think that's
useful
more
change.
of a quality of life change than anything.
Yeah, I mean it just makes sense.
Yeah, it's internal consistency.
Yeah, it's like a common sense buff, I guess.
I guess it's a tiny buff to supports, but whatever.
Yeah. Backdoor protection now also reduces incoming damage by 25%. Siege units HP increase from 500 to 550. Thank God, because as when I play carries, when the siege unit is hitting the tower, sometimes it takes 3 shots, sometimes it takes 4 shots. So it looks like Dota is just trying to normalize up rather than being just completely random, because tower shots do have random damage values from time to time. So I mean, at least this way it's more consistent. And the level 1 and level 2 towers have the armor increase from 18 to 20. This makes sense just because the direction that Dota takes is that it buffs everything rather than nerfing a lot of things. So as heroes get more and more powerful in general, the only things that remain the same are creeps as well as towers. So I guess they want to have a small buff to towers just so that it can sort of scale up as heroes get more and more powerful.
That makes sense. I never really thought of it that way, but yeah, nothing to add.
So mechanics in general, thumbs up or thumbs down. I think aside from the pick and ban order, I have to give it a thumbs up. I'm a big fan of the time reduction. I mean, some captains might disagree because it is a very delicate process, but I think this does encourage more aggressive actions in the early stages of the game and even in the mid stages of the game. But the bans and picks order, it's a little bit iffy for me.
Yeah, overall, just thumbs up is what I'm going to give it. Why don't you take us into the next thing while I let my dog in? This is the last he'll bother us for this cast.
Alright, sounds good. So I'm just going to go over the new heroes, which SK actually does not have any clue. But just judging from what I've read of this hero, Kaolin the Earth Spirit, which I'm going to guess is the Warcraft 3 Earth Panda model, this hero is a melee hero, and he looks like an absolute champ. So I'm just going to read over his skills really quickly. He has above average move speed and normal base attack time. He's melee. He has decent starting armor. He has pretty average damage. It might be a little bit lower than usual, but he's a strength hero, so he's gonna have that nice strength growth, a nice intelligence growth as well, so he can actually cast a reasonable amount. Going over the skills really quickly, we're gonna have Stone Collar, which actually means you summon rocks, basically, and this is actually just sort of a skill that you have in general. It's not something you have to level up. This is a skill that he comes with. I guess if you want to equate it to something, it's something like in League of Legends or Smite, where a hero gets stuff naturally. It's sort of the passive ability, but this one's an active passive. So you don't actually have to level it up, you just create rocks. Big whoop.
Yeah, this is the first thing that's ever been like this, so this hero's going to work weird. Is the only way to say it. Like,
Yeah.
this is the first in all of Dota ever, I think, right? Like, no one's ever had something like this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the correct assumption here, because this is more of a League of Legends / Smite thing, in my opinion. But I mean, I'm welcome to this change. We'll see how it works out. But of course, this will not be in the competitive scene. Just going to go over the skills really quickly. Rolling Boulder means that he rolls over you as a boulder. If there's a rock there, then you get additional slow, something like that. So you just charge in, and he can just do a bunch of damage. Seems like a pretty strong initiation spell. Relatively short cooldown, so it can be spammed. It seems quite powerful. Probably will be overpowered, as most new heroes tend to be, but the thing about Ice Frog is when he introduces new heroes, he wants to be overpowered so that they can actually get played, rather than underpowered so he doesn't really know what to fix, because nobody plays them. So, yeah. Boulders, Yep, Boulder Smash slams an ally, enemy, or rock with his Mighty Stone, knocking them away from him, and damaging enemies the target collides with. The slammed rocks travel further than fleshy targets, and also silence impacted enemies. Does a lot of damage. Okay. Sorry if this is not really the most coherent or in-depth analysis. I have not actually played this hero. I'm just judging by what I see it. Basically, this hero likes rocks. He likes doing stuff with rocks, and he likes headbutting people. And if there are rocks there, then, I mean, more power to him, I guess.
I think the best way to sum this hero up from what I read of all his skills, and it really is hard to, understand a hero without playing him, but he deals damage, he stuns stuff, he silences stuff, and he just controls where people are positioned on the map, including himself. And he has like a big range of influence. And then he just is tanky and runs at people like an idiot. So that's as much as I can really get out of these.
And if he is all of that, then he's definitely going to be super overpowered. Because if a hero can do all of that, then... And also, he's a strength hero, so he's going to naturally build very, very tanky. He has good intelligence growth, so he can actually cast a lot of his stuff. And they have reasonably timed cooldowns. Most of the cooldowns are relatively short, so this hero looks to be very, very powerful. But just going over the rest of the skills, Geomagnetic Grip, this is the skill that I'm most questionable about, because targets get pulled and they get damage if there's a rock nearby. So not only do they get pulled towards you, which has a pretty big range, if they hit a rock, you're going to get stunned for an additional amount of damage, and the rock will explode doing a lot of damage. I think this is probably going to be ridiculously overpowered, but again, it depends on your rock placement. Wow, rocks, so exciting. Meanwhile, Magnetize, damage over time for a short duration, energize, explode, blah blah blah. Rocks, more rocks. Magnetized heroes feel the effect of silence and slow from rocket enhanced boulder smash and rolling boulder if one magnetized hero is affected by them. So if you target one hero, then if there's a rock near another hero, then that person will feel the effects as well. That's at least what I'm guessing just from this really, really oddly phrased skill thing without actually playing the hero. So this hero looks ridiculously powerful, but I mean...
He kind of looks like a giant piece of shit. Jesus, I would not want to play against this hero.
I mean, it's ridiculous. If you saw Zet the Arc Warden, he was so powerful. He's still really powerful in the last patch. I actually played him once or twice. He is so good. So, I mean, I guess this makes sense because more people are playing Dota 2, and IceFrog wants to experiment in Dota 1, and the best way to do that is to make heroes ridiculously powerful so more heroes or more people can actually play him. So, we'll have to see if that actually works.
Yeah, actual quick comment about IceFrog's new heroes, though. IceFrog has a trend in the past 2 years or so. When he makes heroes, he makes them really, really complicated. Every skill does like 5 different things. And there are no, this patch isn't an exception. So while, this may seem really overpowered on paper, I'm going to completely not say whether it is or not, simply because, maybe his turn rate's awful and he can't actually get any skills off, or, maybe there's no place to lane him, or like there's so many other things that can happen aside from just, his skills are all really good, that can make him into, a terrible hero as opposed to one that's great on paper. So I'm not going to say he's OP, not going to say he's underpowered. It's just, it seems like he's got a lot going for him right now.
Yeah, just judging by the skill description, he seems very good. If he has the rocks there, if the rocks are in a correct position, keep in mind the rocks do have a cooldown. They have a duration on how long they last, so if they are there, then he becomes exponentially better. But if they're not there, then he might just be average. So, like you said, the heroes are designed so that they can accomplish a lot if they're played correctly. But if they're not played correctly, you can't really bring out the maximum potential. So it's going to be difficult to see how it actually is run in a relatively organized environment. But just judging on paper, which is, again, the best I can do in this situation, he looks really powerful if you can utilize his rocks.
And speaking of things that are complicated and have a lot going for them if you do them right, let's talk about Nerif the Oracle.
Oh my god. Intelligence hero, 620 range, so above average range, base attack time of 1.4, which is actually lower than Windrunner's, so, I mean, he attacks very, very well. He has ridiculous animation cancel, above average move speed, good intelligence growth, below average everything else in terms of stat growth. Fortune's End channels Nerif's power into a bolt of scouring energy for up to 3 seconds. When released, the bolt strikes the targeted enemy, dealing damage and purging in an AoE around them. The purge duration is equal to the time spent channeling. And the cast range is only 650, which I guess is a blessing. But still, a purge duration that can be relatively spammed always is going to be very, very good, to say the least. And he's an intelligence hero. It has a reasonably timed cooldown, so you'll always be able to cast this multiple times in a team fight. It does a respectable amount of damage. It purges people. I mean, this seems like a very, very strong spell.
Yeah, it's an AoE purge. You don't have to say anything else.
Actually, one time, just going off on a quick tangent, my friend was a big fan of designing heroes and posting them on random Dota forums. And he always made up the most ridiculously powerful ultimates. And I'd just say, why don't I just put in an AoE Purge Silence? And then Disruptor came out, and now this hero comes out. So, like, AoE Purge Silence is just going to be the next new thing. So, I don't know. I guess they should just hire my friend.
Stat.
Yeah. Anyway, Fate's Edict, Nerif enraptures the target, rendering them unable to attack, granting them 100% spell resistance, and increasing the damage they take from other damage types by 50%. Can be cast on both allies and enemies. Now, other damage types, I guess that means hero damage, creep damage, tower damage, and pure damage.
I'm thinking universal damage, you take half of it, right? Like Tinker March and stuff like that, they'll take some of it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit odd to just look at it on paper because I'm not really good with damage types in general.
I mean, the way this jumps out to me is when I see that it goes either enemy or allied and it blocks something, this looks to me, again, sort of like Shadow Demon. You know, if the Tinker's running at your support, you just cast this on him and then he's going to be safe. Or alternatively, although actually pure, so maybe not. But, you know, you get my example. The Lion's running at your support. So, alternatively, if you got two late game carries duking it out and, you know, nobody's going to care about the damage on the Vengeful Spirits done, you can really help your carry out a lot. So it's sort of like Soul Catcher and Disrupt combined. That's how I saw this. Like, when I saw this hero, I just saw Shadow Demon. So it sort of feels like it's a saving people or amplifying damage both in the same place.
Yeah, it seems really powerful, as a pretty long duration, very cheap in terms of mana cost, reasonably timed cooldown. It overall seems like a very, very strong ability if the person actually knows how to use it, and therein lies the problem. It depends on the situation. If the person can recognize the situation, like you said, if somebody's running at you with a huge amount of nuke damage, you can do it on your ally, and then suddenly they take no damage. But if a carry is running at your ally, and they're going to do a lot of physical damage, and you accidentally cast it on your ally, then they're just going to be like, what the fuck, dude? Come on. But likewise, you can target the enemy team and just completely own them with physical damage.
I'm anticipating getting reported for messing this up at least once. Purifying Flames.
Yep. Purifying Flames burns away impurities from the target, dealing heavy damage and causing them to regenerate life each second for 9 seconds. Can be cast on both allies and enemies. Once again, a really cheap mana cost spell, reasonable cast range, pretty long duration, ridiculously short cooldown. So this is, I guess, his bread and butter. He's going to spam it relentlessly, but if you don't get the kill, they're going to regen up a lot of HP. But I guess, I don't know. I don't imagine it can be stacked. Oh, it does stack.
It
Holy
stacks.
crap.
And yeah, dude, this spell's
Oh my
ridiculous.
God.
This is the weirdest spell I've ever seen in Dota, including the weird Zet Warden one. Okay, basically, the skinny on this is that it's an execute, right? If you see an enemy and they're under 360 HP, you hit them with it, they die.
No, even if
or
they're
you
at
can get
like
'em-
500 HP, because it stacks as good cast range, and it's so low in mana cost. Wow, I was just looking at it. I didn't know it actually stacked. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, this
it
spell is
stacks.
average.
It's messed up. So on an enemy, if you think you can finish them off, you hit them with like 3 in a row, and you really, really hope that you get them in that duration. And at that time, I'm not going to do the arithmetic. I'm really sleepy, but I think you want to really max. Like, obviously, there's diminishing returns. Like, you can keep doing it, but if you don't get them, like with each subsequent one that you don't get them on, they're going to start healing for. I think the total heal is 360. So all in all, it's like a net gain of nothing, but you really want to knock them out. Otherwise, you're not doing anything, and then you're wasting your spell and you're wasting your time. Alternatively, it can be casted on allies. So
I guess
this is
you
where
could-
it gets weird.
You could
Your
cast
allies
it.
take the damage, but it's not lethal. So if an ally's low, the best way to do it, like, is if they're at 5 HP, you just hit them with it, and you save them.
Yeah, and also I think, I don't know if this was intended, but maybe you can use it before a battle. You just cast it on carry a couple times, maybe use a mechanism as well as your urn, or if you have a, I don't know. This is just complete bullshit theory craft, but if they have a heart as well, and then suddenly in the battle they have ridiculous regen. So, I don't know, this spell seems really, really ridiculous in general.
Yeah, it's this hero again. I'm not gonna say he's amazing. He's overpowered. He looks really freaking good, and I didn't even understand this when I read it the first time. False Promise.
Temporarily alters the target ally's destiny, delaying all damage, healing, and regeneration effects on them until False Promise ends. Ally is granted invisibility while attacking and moving, removes all negative status effects when applied. The delayed healing is doubled when it's provided at the end of duration. So basically, this is sort of like a pseudo Guardian Angel with a ridiculous cooldown. Again, this seems to be a recurring theme. All the spells have such short cooldowns for all these new heroes in general. But basically, you cast it on an ally, they don't get any damage, but they can't heal up, they can't regen up at the same time, and
But then
they
they get all
get
the regen that you stacked on them before. So you stacked a bunch of regens on
and
them, and they don't feel any of the damage, and all the regen kicks in, and it's like, whoa, holy shit, you're fighting someone with like
and
5
also
hearts for regen.
it's like an aphotic shield because it removes stun effects, it removes negative status effects, and it's also like a shadow dance because you can attack while invisible. Like, what the
Yeah.
heck is this?
I think this guy is going to be played as a support if he is. Again, these new heroes are really weird because all of their skills are all really absurdly good, so you want to get them a ton of levels, but they're not really mid heroes, so I don't know. Whatever. Let's move on to the actual heroes, I think.
Yeah, the only reason why I went over these heroes is because, I mean, Dota 2 is close to having all of its heroes released, so I imagine that some of these heroes will be released relatively soon. I mean, they definitely won't be competitive, but it doesn't really hurt going over them. Warden, I mean, he was the hero in the last patch. He's still very, very strong. But, I mean, he just has a couple minor changes. I'm not really going to go over them. You can read them yourself. Axe counter helix cooldown decreased from 0.65, 0.6, 0.55, 0.5 to 0.55, 0.5, 0.45, 0.5, 0.4. He can spin more. Good job.
Still offset the Tranquil nerf.
Yeah.
Axe doesn't like Tranquils that much anymore, just because they break on some jungle creeps, so this just sort of helps him out a bit, kind of helps him power through to get to that first tier item. And you're a little bit robotic for me, by the way, so I hope I'm not coming through like
No,
that for
you're
you.
fine on my end.
Okay.
Ancient Apparition Ice Vortex cooldown decreased from 6 to 5. Ice Blast base AoE increased from 225 to 275. Added Aghanim Scepter Ice Blast duration increased from 8, 9, 10 to 17. I love this. I mean, AA just seems like such a cool hero to me. His ultimate is just what makes the hero ridiculously powerful in certain situations, of course. I mean, this completely counters healing lineups, completely can counter pushing lineups. But the way Ancient Apparition is played, he's played as support. Supports won't really ever farm an Aghanim Scepter. If you can ever farm an Aghanim Scepter on AA as support, then you're probably going to win the game regardless. So this might lead to AA being played more as a, more of a secondary support rather than a primary support where I'll get more farm. But still, I can't really imagine that this will be picked up that often.
2 points, one of which is something that I had needed to say for the cast overall, and one's Apparition. The Apparition specific point is that the way he's played now, the way I think he should be played, is when you think of it, he's really, really bad in the tri-lane. Like, he doesn't offer anything in terms of his stun or his slow, but what he does offer is his plus auto attack damage spell. So if you have like a Luna in a lane with you and you have some sort of slow, like a Venomancer or an Undying with a Tombstone that can make a slow, those heroes just destroy when you put them together. They're really, really scary in an offensive tri-lane situation. So again, I think the only way you can play this hero right now is as an offensive tri-laner. And again, it's just a buff to someone who's in an offensive tri-lane. But the thing I wanted to say that's the more general point is Ice Frog doesn't like heroes that are supports that don't scale well, who are mid heroes. And you got to have a little bit of history on this, but every single like monster laner who is like incredibly strong in mid lane and could just like slam mid lane has been nerfed to the point where they can't really mid anymore. Apparition used to be a monster mid, but he got nerfed. Shadow Demon, Rubik, a lot of heroes could mid really, really well, and they were nerfed, and they can't really do it anymore. They'll still win mid by a lot, but it doesn't matter because they just fall off so fast. But with the Bottle Crow nerf, a lot of heroes might possibly come back into vogue, who like their entire purpose was winning mid.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
Apparition was one of those heroes, and if you run him as a mid, you can get an Ag Scepter up on him.
Yeah.
I think it's a weird pocket pick. I think it can happen this patch.
the duration's actually doubled, so that's pretty significant.
It's huge. Yeah.
And also,
Like-
keep in mind, you also take a small damage out over time, and you can't heal up in the meantime. So, I think this might be a segue into more of a utility-based Ancient Apparition, where he gets a bit more farm, maybe even going to the mid lane like SK mentioned. But I'm definitely pleased to see more versatility being added to heroes. Again, I'm not really comfortable seeing heroes confined to one role consistently. So the more versatility, the more options a hero has, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Batrider.
Yep, Batrider, my favorite hero.
It's also my favorite hero, maybe after Puck or TA, but I'm a Batrider spammer, you're a Batrider spammer. What are your thoughts on this, B-Ballon?
Vision decreased from 1800-800 to 1400-800. Flamebreak mana cost increased from 80, 100, 120, 140 to 140. Now, this is interesting because Vision was decreased. This is definitely, something that needed to be done. If you know, and this is definitely common knowledge, the flying vision is actually supposed to be nerfed on Barrier and Firefly, but actually it's a bug in Dota 2, so he gets full flying vision. So I guess this is a way to compensate that slightly. I'm not too sure if the flying vision will get fixed now, or if this is going to be the consistent vision all throughout the Barrier daytime vision. This also limits Barrier's capability in the mid lane a little bit, because he can't really see up the hill as much. Um, and the Flame Break mana cost, this is pretty significant because Flame Break is a costly spell, and Barrier doesn't really build into mana intensive items. He doesn't really get Arcane Boots, Force Staff doesn't give you the greatest amount of mana regen. He wants the Blink Dagger, he wants the Lasso, he wants the Firefly, and that by itself costs around 360 mana, and Barrier doesn't really have the best intelligence growth. So this will definitely lead to a lot more decisions being made by the Barrier in what spells where you should use when. But I think one of the best reasons why you should use Barrier is because he's so versatile, he can play in every lane. This doesn't really affect that. And also, he's one of the best initiators in the game. This doesn't really affect that as much. I mean, unless the flying vision is taken away when you use the Firefly.
Well, the flying vision, I think, is a big deal. Or will the vision decrease simply because a lot of times, you know what it is. Like, you're fireflying on the side of the map and you have the trees, and you can see them, but they can't see you, and it's just a free initiation,
But even
really
then,
amplifies.
even now, I think you can probably still see them in certain locations. But I guess it'll take a bit more risky positioning.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people can hide just a little bit better, I think. Because I thought about this for a really long time when I was thinking about how to nerf this hero, and I think there's a lot of places where you can stand where you're defending a tower where you're safer now. You don't have to group up as much, which, if you get a hero that punishes that, it's not necessarily something you have to do. But the big deal on the Flame Break mana cost, you can't just look at this and see, oh, it costs more mana now. Because here's the thing. You need to use Flame Break to kill people in mid lane. You need to. You can't do it without it unless you're playing against someone who really doesn't know what they're doing. And, you knock them back and you kill them, But when you lasso someone, you usually have to Flame Break immediately after so that they're knocked back immediately as the duration of the lasso ends. And a lot of times, until you're level 8 at least, most people prefer the build of only having 1 point in it when you're level 8. It's going to cost you 140 mana to finish that kill. So a lot of times what you would do on Batrider is you're farming a little bit, then you go to a lane, you kill people, so you use all your spells, and you're like, okay, well, you got 2 options at that point. You can either get lucky and get a rune, 3 options. You can Bottle Crow, or you can go to the forest, stack a camp, use Firefly, and then go back to base. So with the fact that Bottle Crow is no longer an option, and with this nerf, I don't think that you'll necessarily be able to go to the jungle and farm it with Firefly, just because a lot of times you come out of those ganks at like 50 mana. Or like after the Firefly's over, you're at 50 mana after you're going back to base. So
Really,
I think it's going to slow down his farming.
I don't think so, because oftentimes in professional games, I mean, this will definitely hurt him in pub games, I feel like, but in professional games, the Barrier will just run around, clear creeps, get full mana, go in for the gank, he'll blink in, get the lasso, drag back, go back to farming. I mean, this doesn't really affect because you're always ganking with more than one person, and I feel like this doesn't really hamper that much. And also, when you're jungling the early game, you're not going to even use Flame Break. You're not really going to go out of your lane until you get to level 6. So this doesn't really hamper that either. So I think Barrier will still be very, very high tier.
He's still S tier. No, definitely. I'm just saying it's going to slow down your Force Staff. Post Blink Dagger, your Force Staff isn't going to come quite as fast, is what I think this is.
Probably. But, I mean, he'll still be a very powerful hero. Hopefully, I mean, this will be enough. Hopefully he won't be nerfed anymore because, I mean, come on, Ice Frog. Stop.
I would like to see a Napalm change where it progresses to 70%, but that's neither here nor there because it wasn't in this patch.
Yeah, for the turn rate. Because Napalm, of course, gives you constant 70% rather than increasing percent turn rate reduction. But yeah, is this enough? Probably not in terms of knocking him down in terms of competitive viability, but overall in terms of making him weaker, making him not so powerful in every single engagement, this could potentially be enough. It's a bit too early to tell.
Yeah. And Beastmaster is, I don't know, this just doesn't seem relevant to me. It seems just like a courtesy buff,
Yeah, it's just a buff just for the sake of having a buff. I feel like I don't think that extra second would matter. Beastmaster as he is a consistent hero, but he's not ridiculously overplayed. He's pretty balanced in general. I mean, this change not really necessary, but it won't really affect Beastmaster's playability. So
No.
moving on to Bloodseeker, Strigler's Thirst now gives you bonus 3, 4, 5, 6 armor when activated, or when active because it is a passive. Blood Rage dispels the target before applying its buff. This would cause it to remove things like Ethereal, so Ghost Scepter, not really an option before against Bloodseeker anymore. And Rupture damage is now HP loss, so this causes it to go through Magic Immunity now. This is really interesting because this actually is...
Nake's.
Huh?
It's to me this is a Nake's solution. You
Also,
silence him before he gets his rage off, and then you rupture him once he does get it off, and he can't really do that much about it.
I mean,
I honestly think that that's what this was for. I think he's still a useless hero, but I think this was designed to make him as a counterpick to Nake's.
I mean, he's already a counterpick to Weaver, so maybe he can just be a counterpick hero in general. Because, yeah, it does shut down Nyx pretty well.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is a good hero. He's still absolutely crap, but
yeah,
I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to be where he is for the most part. It'll be more interesting to play him now because Blood Rage actually does stuff now. But, I mean, it's still really... His hero model in general, or his hero concept in general, is just not that strong, unfortunately, for players like Malk who love that hero. Moving on to Bounty Hunter, track mana cost from 70, 60, 50 to 50. I actually checked through the changelogs, and Bounty Hunter, throughout his entire history before the last patch, only got buffs. And the last patch, he got that minus armor track nerf. And now his track is getting buffed once again. So,
This is a big deal, actually. It seems like nothing, but it's a big deal.
yeah, I think so, because actually track in the early game, Bounty Hunter has such a low mana pool that he can't really get a track and have invisibility and have a shuriken toss in a lot of situations. The extra 20 mana, or the minus 20 mana, actually makes a pretty significant difference.
Yeah, well, the thing with Bounty Hunter is there's two builds. There's the Max Shuriken build, and there's the 2 Shuriken build, which is much more mana efficient. And the issue is, if you do the Max Shuriken build, which you want to do, like that's the way you want to play him because it just allows you to get kills, unless you're playing him as a laner, which is weird. But basically what ends up happening is you kill someone, and then you're out of mana. And now, because you're bottling, because I'm just assuming that you're getting a bottle on this hero, what you usually end up doing is that your mid gets the rune, and then you bottle crow. You can't bottle crow anymore, and if you can, it's going to take longer to come back to you. So the issue with track is it really does run up the mana cost early game. Like it's noticeable. Everybody's happy when they hit 11, 16 because of the mana cost. And with bottle crow nerfed, I think that this is sort of a way to answer for that because the bottle crow nerf hurts Bounty Hunter, especially with him sitting in a side lane just doing the triangle bottle crow formation. So this is a good way of giving him a little buff to make up for that.
Yeah. I mean, Bounty Hunter, as it is, will be picked situationally, and I think this will retain that status. I mean, now, he's currently not picked ever, but he's a fun hero in general. He promotes aggression, and again, in order for Dota to become a more spectator-friendly game, because the games are so long, you need heroes like this to promote aggressive behavior. But, I mean, you don't really want to completely remove defensive behaviors, because that's what makes Dota so great, is because there's so many different styles you can play it. But anyways, I'm welcome this change to Bounty Hunter. We're going to move on to Bristleback. Hit memory increased from 10 to 14 seconds. Okay.
Doesn't matter. Still a useless hero.
Yep, my thoughts
No way
exactly.
to land him. You can't. Where are you going to put this guy?
I mean, he needs too much experience because in the mid stage of the game, he just doesn't do anything without it levels. You can't put him in the mid lane. It's just...
There is... Yeah, I mean... Sorry for cutting you off, but there is a weird way to play him, and it's in what I would call as the stupid tanky healing strat, where you have like a Treant and a Wisp and a Bristleback. Like, you don't really have any carry or anything. You just have heroes that you can't ever kill. And this is a legitimate strat. It doesn't happen that often, but when you see somebody execute it, maybe one game in, 200 in tournament games, it's really, really legit. And I think Malk was the one who first started doing this like 5 years ago.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the games that first one to make me cast Dota, because it was actually Bristleback in conjunction with Silbear when he wasn't that popular. It was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, he's part of that stupid tanky strategy. So I had this done to me yesterday. It was an embarrassing loss, but I think you can run him as an offlane in a weird strat like this. You just, it doesn't happen.
I mean, that doesn't really affect this buff.
Yeah, and it doesn't even change that, so I don't know. It's just a courtesy buff.
Yep, just saying, alright, we don't really know what to do with this hero at this moment. We'll give him buffed, so hopefully he can be played more. But anyways, moving on to Broodmother. incapacitating bite mischance from 10, 20, 30, 40 to 30, 40, 50, 60. So you miss more. Spawn Spiderling's unit count. Well, now, of course, you get a pretty significant mischance even at level 1. Spawn Spiderling's unit count increased from 1, 2, 3, 3 to 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, Broodmother is tricky hero to balance. She is either ridiculously overpowered or just never seen. So I'm not really too sure what to make of this, but the primary way to play Broodmother, of course, is to max spiders and webs and then max incapacitating bite. Now you might throw in a point of incapacitating bite in there just for that 30% mischance. I'm not too sure.
I think you would get it. You might get it at level 6 as a defensive measure if you didn't want to get your ult. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what to make of this. It increases your pushing power a bit, the spawn spiraling buff. I mean, an extra spider is definitely something that people don't like to face. But honestly, I don't know if this affects her viability. She'll either remain... I think she'll still be a fringe pick.
I think this hero is utter crap, to be honest. Like, Bloodseeker tier, I don't think this hero is good. I think people know how to deal with it. And I think if you want to pick this hero, you should just pick a Furion instead, because it does what you want it to do, but better.
Centaur War Chief, add to Captain's mode. This hero is too strong. What? He's useless? He's so strong.
What are you going to do with him? Where are you going to land him?
You run around with him and do shit. Jungling is more powerful now.
Yeah, but you can't jungle a Centaur War Chief.
Yeah, you can. You get double edge in return.
Oh, you know what? You might be able to run him as like an offlane jungler type thing.
I mean, you get fucking global move speed, run around, you slow people, and level 3 you get 60-second global move speed for 5 seconds. Yeah. This hero...
You're right.
I mean, the crazy thing about Centaur War Chief is not the ultimate. It's his strength growth, which is 3.8. That is massive. He gets base 3000 HP at level 25, I think, without, like, any items. So, I mean, he is ridiculously tanky. I think he'll be extremely viable. I mean, he might be sort of played as sort of a Lycan style, where you just put him in the jungle and just say, do whatever you want, and then come out when you're ready, and then when you come out, you can just destroy things. That's my opinion on the hero. I could be completely wrong. I think this hero is ridiculously powerful, just because his strength growth is absolutely phenomenal. And keep in mind, return also hits towers. So if the tower hits you, it's going to hurt itself at the same time. And in general, how are you going to actually kill this guy? I don't see a way you can kill this guy.
I agree with everything you just said. My issue is, though, I'm thinking about the laning more than what actually happens after the laning stage ends. So I think if you want to jungle him, because he's an HP reliant jungler, you're going to need to do it in such a way that you actually have a safe lane tri-lane, and he's not part of it. You know how sometimes Furion will leave the offlane and go jungler or Solo Bear or Darkseer or any of those heroes?
Mm-hmm.
I think if he's played, it'll be in that vein, where, you know, you might get a level in the offlane and you're like, oh, can't get anything, let's go jungle for a level 2. Then, you know, you go back top. So it's a get what you can type hero, because I don't think he can hard carry. And I think if
No, I don't think he can hard carry either.
I don't think he can offensive tri-lane unless it's a really weak tri-lane that they have.
I don't know. Even before Centaur got all his buffs, in the very few games we saw him, he was pretty dominant in tri-lane scenarios. So
in offensive tri-lane scenarios?
In a lot of tri-lane scenarios. I mean, he was very rarely picked. And the issue is, like you mentioned, it's difficult to lane him. But in tri-lane versus tri-lane, he's ridiculously powerful.
I would have to see it. I'm going to say right now, I'm going to tentatively disagree with you. Okay. And say that he would be played as like the offlane into jungle sort of. But I want to see it. You know, it's a good idea. I want to see it. I don't think it'll work, but it might work really well. So I'm prepared to eat my words on this one.
Clink's strafe cooldown decreased from 60, 50, 40, 30 to 45, 40, 35, 30, so it gets better scaling. Okay, I mean, strafe is not completely useless in the early game. I mean, it's not useless anyways, but now you can use it more in the early game. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you're playing that hero, you end up getting 2 points in your invis, and then you realize, hey, I'm actually gonna get Orchid, and like if I just straight max invis, I won't have any points in strafe by the time I get Orchid. So you have to leave it at level 2. But with the way it is right now, I'm pretty sure that you can actually just pick up a point in strafe, and it's just better. Like 1 point's actually worth it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's better than the old level 2 by 5 seconds, which is pretty significant. Moving on to Clockwork, Power Cogs no longer knock back magic immune targets. Cogs, I don't really like what Clockwork has become. He's all about Cogs rather than his other skills. I like being aggressive with Clockwork. Cogs is a naturally defensive mechanism. no longer knocks back magical immune units, so heroes like Lifestealer, heroes like Juggernaut, and heroes with BKB will no longer get knocked back. So that means when heroes teleport out, if they activate BKB, you can't just run up to them and just push them with the Clockwork Cogs. I'm not too sure how this affects his viability. I think he'll still be strong in a lot of scenarios, but this definitely hurts him because he can't have that easy mechanism to just disrupt escaping hero TPs.
I don't think this is enough. I think Cogs need a significant.
I think
Either you
Cogs
fix
just
the
need.
cooldown or you fix
I
the
think
way
Cogs
they
just
interact
need to be
with people.
reworked. Like,
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
just
I
not
think
a
it's
fan of Cogs.
I think it's like an oh shit spell, like where you're just running away and like, oh, gotta live, or like a team fight chaos spell, not a I'm gonna use this in lane spell to harass you, or I don't know. I think that Cogs are too good, but that's not what happened to him. I don't think it's enough, and I think you agree with me. So
I mean, it is always annoying to play against Clockwork. You have a BKB, or if you're Nags, you just teleport, and then they run up to you and cog you, and just like, well, shit. That's the annoying thing. I think that's a welcome change, but again, I have to agree with you. It is, quite frankly, not enough. Cogs is too good. Moving on to Crystal Main. Brilliance Aura mana regen increased from 0.51, 1.52 to 1, 1.52, 2.5. Freezing Field Explosion AoE increased from 215 to 230. Aghanim's Freezing Field attack speed reduction aura increased from minus 21 to 50. Big whoop. She's still slow. She's still useless. She's still garbage.
you cut out a little bit for me on that, but did you insult my girl, Crystal Maiden?
Yes, I hate this hero. She's so boring. Like she's
She's one
she's
of
a
my favorite
support who
supports.
has she has a support who has long cooldown nukes and she's slow. Like I don't do anything with her. Probably because I'm
Here-
bad, but I mean I just don't find her fun to play.
Here's the deal with what she offers that other supports don't. She is a very good dual roamer. If you can't get Shadow Demon, she's the person you want to get because you're guaranteed to hit your Nova from smoke on the enemy mid hero, and from there you're guaranteed to hit Bite on everybody except like Queen of Pain and stupid stuff like that. So you have two disables at level 2, which is a huge deal, and they're both really good disables at level 2. So you just run around the map with those and just kill stuff. Like you run around with the Chenner Enchantress or whatever, or just another support, whatever, and stuff just dies. Like you can be in 8 kills at 12 minutes, and it's easy. And I'm not talking about in a pub. I'm talking about like an actual game. She is one of the best heroes at doing this. The issue is though you run into problems with your mana because you use 2 spells every gank. It's like 220-ish mana. That's burning through a lot of mana, and you can't just Fairy Clarities nonstop like on Venomancer or whatever. So what Brilliance Aura did last patch was it doubled the regen for yourself. So you got 0.5, so at rank 1, you got a full 1 point of regen, which kind of let your gank train keep going, but it sort of wasn't quite enough. So now if you get 1 point, you actually get 2 mana extra per second, just with 1 point in it. So you get that at level 3, and then you just straight max Nova or Bite if you need to lock down a Weaver or something. And you just gank. Not like no other hero is capable of doing that. Just never stopping running around killing stuff. And I think she is really underutilized, especially in offensive trailing scenarios.
It's because she's way too slow. That's the
I
primary
disagree.
reason.
I don't think her being slow is an issue. I think that's just something people say. I've never found an issue with her speed. Like, you get everything, like every spell that you want to get off, just you get off. And because your cast range is so big on all your stuff, you can hide. Like, I don't think there's a dying issue on her. And I
Alright,
think
well, here's this. What will Crystal Main do until she gets to level 3?
until she gets level 3,
I mean, besides, I guess just gank, like you mentioned, because she has the full mana pool.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think she's really good at level 1 and 2 in a tri-lane, and then once she hits level 3, you just abandon your nakes to the offlane or whatever, right? Just do the slowly farming nakes, and just run around and kill mid, kill the offlane, just keep going. I probably am going to disagree with most people on this because I feel like this hero is seriously underrated, but that's my 2 cents.
I mean, it would be cool to see a really aggressive roaming support back in, very, very strong consideration for the competitive scene. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm definitely a bit more convinced after that long soliloquy that you mentioned. But I just don't really have fun playing this hero, so that's why I'm obviously biased against her. Darkseer Vacuum cooldown increased from 22 to 24. Once again, a 2-second cooldown nerf. I mean, Vacuum is such a strong spell, it doesn't really matter the cooldown unless it gets nerfed to high hell. So this really won't make a difference. Angel is still really powerful. Vacuum is still really powerful. Surge is still really powerful. Wall is still really powerful. This won't really affect too much of anything.
I mean, Dark's just seen enough nerfs, like just small nerfs for a long time that he's like he used to be first pick, first ban, and now he's just sort of second pick. So, I mean, it's not a big deal, but if you add up all the stuff that he's seen over the Dark Sphere of like 3 or 4 versions ago, it kind of is.
That's
It's
true.
not this. It's not this change, but this hero gets a little bit weaker every patch.
I mean, this is sort of the case you can make with the Ice Frog style. He doesn't nerf super hard, or in some situations he does for like Lycan and Morph, but in other situations he doesn't nerf super hard. He just sort of adds on the buffs and makes them, competitively equal with a lot of different heroes. But moving on to Dazzle, Shadow Wave target count increased from 3,345 to 3,456. Shadowgrave can now be cast on magic immune allies. I love this hero. He is my favorite support because he is one of the greediest supports because he needs a lot of experience. I don't know if this will make him very viable now, but it definitely helps. Now you can cast Shadowgrave through BKB or things like that. So I'm definitely for this change. I'm not too sure how this will affect him, especially since, like you mentioned, Trilons are probably going to be a lot more powerful now, and Dazzle is just, in general, not the best Trilon hero. He has a heal, but outside of that, what does he contribute? Not too much of anything. So I don't know if this is enough, but I'm certainly grateful for this buff.
I think that Dazzle is okay. So I think that his role in this metagame is the anti-TA hero. Like that's just what he does. He just ruins TA's day. Here's why. When you're playing Templar Assassin, the way it works is you just go on someone, and then you kind of isolate them, and then you kill them, and then you move to the next person and do it. When you're trying to go on the first person on TA and they get graved, you can't chase them for like you can't afford to chase that hero for 5 seconds. You just can't do it. So you got to go back into the fight, but all those people are clumped up, so you can't fight clumped up people as TA, and it's awful and it's terrible. And I'd almost rather play against a Batrider than a good Dazzle when I'm playing TA. Some teams utilize, like, not a lot. I've seen it in scrims, but I think teams sort of know that this works against Templar Assassin, but are afraid to use it in real games. So, I don't know.
And also, just something to mention is that this sort of buffs Dazzle's viability of pushing strategies, because you get an extra unit, and if you're in a heavy summon push strategy, then you will definitely benefit from that extra unit who needs to be healed up. But I mean, the cooldown is so low anyways, 4 seconds at level 4, that it might not be the biggest deal. But I'm grateful for all the Dazzle buffs that I can get, but honestly, I don't really expect to see him too often.
Yeah.
Death Prophet movement speed decreased from 285 to 280, so she is actually the second slowest here in the game behind Techies. Silence AoE increased from 200, 275, 350, 350 to 350 at all levels. Witchcraft move speed bonus increased from 4, 8, 12, 16% to 5, 10, 15, 20%. Not too sure what to make of this, as she is faster at level 4. The problem with Krob is that once you hit a certain point, you just really fall off in terms of effectiveness. I think she's still very underrated because her ultimate just does a ridiculous amount of damage in general, and it's really good in terms of pushing. And it's only down for 70 seconds at a time, assuming, of course, you don't die. But once she hits that peak, she doesn't really get better. So I'm not too sure what to make of this.
The silence change is the really big change because a lot of times when you think of Death Prophet, you think of, oh, you have the nuke and then you have the spirits, and that's what you do. You push towers, and that's what you do. You don't think of her as a hero that silences, and a lot of times it's because when she's going to be fighting in like those mid-game skirmishes, she's only going to have 1 point in her silence, and it's really hard to hit. Maybe I'm awful, I don't know, but it's really hard to hit a 200 AoE silence, and even if you are hitting it, it's only landing on one person. I think that this is trying to sort of emphasize her role as a silencer, not just saying like, oh, she just pushes towers. So it's trying to go for that mid-game skirmish thing, maybe silence the, I don't know, Weaver, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can do something crazy like a support Krob, but that doesn't really make too much sense. I don't think this will really affect her too much, but it definitely helps, once again. This, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, all these small buffs could add up, and Krob could be the next top pick. It's difficult to tell just in the context of one patch. I have to look back through all the patch notes and just see what exactly happened to Krob. Maybe she's super powerful. I mean, the same thing started happening to Mag. He just got buffed over and over and over and over again, and then he became ridiculously powerful. So, who knows? Krob, Dazzle, Crystalmane could be heroes of that nature, but it's difficult to say in the context of this patch what their impact will actually be. But moving on, Disruptor Thunderstrike increased from 3 strikes over 4 seconds to 4 strikes over 6 seconds, so you get more damage. Thunder Strike damage per strike decrease from 50, 75, 100, 125 to 40, 60, 80, 100. So you do
You deal
more,
more damage.
do more damage earlier on
But
and later.
the big thing is you maintain sight over a target for 2 extra seconds. With SD no longer able to watch a target with his poison, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we will. This is sort of a pseudo replacement for it. I don't know if I necessarily like the change because Disruptor is really, really unique as a support hero, and it sort of feels like he's shoehorning in to SD's sort of X role. But either way, it's a very small buff on a hero that I don't think needs it because he's really, he does his own thing, and if you need to pick him, you'll pick him, and if you don't need to pick him, you won't. He's not like a generic support hero, he's specialized, so he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Disruptor is that he's not really that strong in a Tron versus Tron scenario. But more damage definitely won't hurt him in that regard. And the sight, even though the casting range is short compared to SD Shadow Poison, it definitely hurts, or it definitely helps by a decent amount. The AoE being increased also helps. I mean, Disruptor is such a cool hero in general. I mean, he has an AoE purge silence essentially, so I'm always going to be a big fan of that. Doombringer, Doom now disables Feast, Backtrack, Dispersion, Juxtapose, Bristleback, and Bloodbath. So all the passives that it didn't previously dispel, it does now. Good for you, Doom. Aghanim Scepter upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, nerf for PL, Nakes, and those are really the 2 ones that care about it. The Aghanim Scepter upgrade is weird, and I don't know what to think of it, so I'm going to completely revoke anything on it, but why don't you read it?
Aghanim's Doom duration doesn't count down while the target is within 550 range of Doombringer. So basically, if Doombringer is right up in your face, or not even in your face, if he's 550 range, which is the range of certain heroes, I guess a little bit less range than a hero like Disruptor, for example, then the Aghanim's Doom duration doesn't actually count down. So that means you will consistently take damage, and you won't actually... I guess this is a buff to Doom in teamfights, so you can just Doom the carry, and they can't really do that much, because Doom is going to be up close in their face majority of the time. This is also, I guess, a buff to chasing Doom, but in general, Aghanim Scepter on Doom wasn't really seen as very, very viable. I remember the old days where Aghanim's Doom was pretty much all the craze in like 6.66, but...
Oh, yeah, I remember. I mean, I feel like if you're dooming someone, they're out of the fight. I mean, until you get to like pretty late game, if someone's doomed, the fight's going to occur in the duration of that doom.
I mean, this could be an answer to Doom not being nearly as strong in the late game. Just pick up an Aghanims, and suddenly, if Doom's tanky enough, that target will be doomed for such a long time that they will be shut down by quite a bit in terms of what they can actually do.
Could be, but right now I'm going to say that I don't know really what this is supposed to do. So I'm going to let someone wiser than me explain this or wait to actually see it in gameplay, which is always better for me.
I mean, people are becoming a big proponent of Caster Doom. I know AUI 2000 is a huge fan of Caster Doom. Snaking used Caster Doom in his last game, so this could be a buff to Caster Dooms in general. But moving on, Dragon Knight Corrosive Breath passive from level 1 Elder Form now carries over to level 2, the DPS. So that means if you're level 2, I mean, before, the only reason you get level 2 Dragon Form is to clear ancient stacks or farm a lot faster, because the poison damage that was provided on towers and also to heroes is pretty significant in terms of pushing. I don't know if Dragon Knight needs buffs. He seems like a very powerful hero. He's just not popular in the Western scene. But this is more of a common sense buff, because before, like, what was the point of leveling up your ultimate unless you want to farm? So yeah, I guess that was the reasoning.
I remember a long time ago when I was reading about that hero, I didn't really know anything about Dota. I was like, I'm no game designer, but I don't think this makes sense. So, I mean, that's just why it was fixed, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think this hero is underutilized in the West, but a lot of that presence came from the middle in the form of Bottle Crowing. But he is still very tanky, he's still very powerful. And at least this way, you don't always have to say, alright, we need level 16 desperately. You still do need level 16 quite desperately, but you can still do stuff with level 2 Dragon Form. You can still push, and you can actually push very, very quickly because you clear the creeps a lot faster. But I mean, he's a good hero in general. He's underutilized in the West, but it's difficult to say how this actually applies, especially with the Bottle Crow nerf.
Yeah, Troll Ranger.
Yep, True Shot Aura increased from 14, 18, 22, 26 to 16, 20, 24, 28. I think she was over-nerfed. 2% increase, it's not really that much. I mean, if you get 80 agility, of course it's going to mean a lot more, but you can just get up-close interface, and she just loses so much of her damage. I'm not too sure, like, if she'll be viable at this point.
I don't know. I don't think the hero's good. I've
Yeah,
heard pros say otherwise, but I don't think the hero's good. So
it used to be good, but now
yeah,
it's like
it used to be, and then it got nerfed, and it's
if you're in
whatever.
the range of a torrent, basically width of distance, she loses basically all of her damage. So that's unfortunate for Drow, but she's just a very tricky hero to balance in general because a lot of her abilities rely on passive rather than actives. So, either she's going to be ridiculously powerful or just not very useful whatsoever. Earthshaker turn rate improved from zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.6. Visual range increased from 1200 to 1300. Echo Slam now considers illusions as heroes. This affects Aghanim Scepter upgrade as it does extra damage for each hero in the area. So this is only a
Lancer.
buff to Aghanim Scepter Earthshaker, but if you pick up Aghanim Scepter on Earthshaker, if you're facing against Illusion lineup, then you will just be able to destroy them.
I can't remember the last time I got to Aghanims on Earthshaker though. Like
I mean, the
I
turn
feel like
rate buff is greatly appreciated. He moves way too slow when he
yeah, the turn
turns.
rate buff is the biggest thing. I think even bigger than the fissure range. Um, I still don't think that he's like a how do you say? He's a team specialist or like a specialist hero where a team might have one person who plays him really well and they might pick him every now and then when they get like Keeper of the Light. But he's not. I don't think he's a mainstream pick. I think he's a. I know Fnatic EU likes running him, but that's. I don't know of
Yeah,
anyone
some
else who's still.
Chinese teams like to run him from time to time, but they will never get to Aghanims. If they get Aghanims, that means they're ridiculously far ahead,
It means you already won.
or the game is lasted to like 70 or 80 minutes. Where if you pick it up, then it might be able to put you over the top, but that's such a rare scenario. The turn rate, like you mentioned, like I mentioned, is probably the biggest buff, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you, Ice Frog, making that Cal a little less clunky to move around with. Ember Spirit Flame Guard DPS increased from 30, 35, 40, 45 to 30, 40, 50, 60. He's added to Captain's Mode. Yes, that means he will probably be in Dota 2, hopefully before TI3. He seems like a very fun hero to play. Last time I checked, which was when he was super powerful, before he got nerfed whatsoever, he was ridiculously powerful. He got nerfed a lot, so now he's not as powerful. I'm not really too sure what his role is. I'm going to be excited to find out, but cool.
Pretty
Buff.
sure his rule's killing things, but yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't even know what he does completely. So
Alright,
Enchantress,
you're the Enchantress player. Aghanim Scepter bonus attack range
big
increased
deal.
from 165 to 190. So she starts out with 550. She gets buffed up to 715. Now she gets buffed up to 740 or 750, something like that.
740. I mean, I'm sure there's a comment going to be calling me out on my arithmetic, but I think it's 740. Either
I
way,
think you're right.
the point is, Aghanim Scepter is realistic on Enchantress. A lot of people just go Treads, Urn, maybe a Basilius, and then your Aghanim Scepter, and it turns you into a semi-carry if you get it, 25, 30 minutes. So I think that it's not going to like put her over the edge, but it's for teams that already pick her, they're going to be more incentivized to do so. For teams that avoid her, there's going to be no reason to pick her up. Like, you're not going to pick her up for this upgrade. Like, it's just for people who already pick her are just going to do a little bit better, you know?
I guess it's
Like, the
sort
point
of
of
to.
Enchantress is, the first 5 minutes of the game, not the late game, but
Yeah, I mean, it keeps her more relevant. It also gives her another reason to be picked over Chen because I think in general Chen is much more widely played than Enchantress in professional games. And
En-
also the jungle
Enchantress is
buff.
so, like, you hear about you can have a shitty jungle. Chen can come back from a shitty jungle. Enchantress can't. Like, if you get a shitty jungle on Enchantress, your game just kind of ends. So,
But the jungle buff in general, not having the wards.
yeah, that's a big deal, too.
So, I mean, we might see a bit more Enchantress play. I mean, she'll do more damage, she'll have more range. Definitely going to help her. Meanwhile, moving on to Enigma, Malphite scaling reworked. The duration previously was 2, 4, 4, 6, 1, 2, 2, 3 ticks, and add some damage. Big whoop. Duration now is 3 ticks consistently, and the stun duration increases as it ticks, or as you level it up. And if you get the max damage, I guess. No, it's 3 ticks at all levels. So that is actually pretty strong.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty significant buff.
Yeah, this is actually
If
pretty
I'm
good.
reading this right, and I could be reading it wrong, but I think it's better.
It is definitely better because before, you'd only get one, maybe 2 ticks until you maxed it, and then you get the maximum duration, which was 3 ticks. Now you always get 3 ticks, so they're always going to run for a bit, then stop, run for a bit, then stop. The damage is also greater. You're going to be locked in place a bit more in the early stages of the game. Even if the stun duration technically isn't the same, you're going to be stuck a bit more. So this is definitely a buff. I'm not too sure if this will affect too much, but maybe with the sort of fallout of Magnus in the middle lane, we might see more Enigma. Who knows?
I don't know.
I mean, he's still best as a pusher. That's what he does. He pushes.
Actually, you know what? You know what? This didn't even occur to me until now, but Enigma can be played as a pretty good 1v1 laner, in a side lane. The issue is people were getting bottle and were spamming him out of lane and just, doing that triangle bottle crow thing. With the side lane bottle crow probably being removed, I think Enigma might make a comeback as a side laner.
And having that extra tick of Malphus can definitely help you get a kill.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to with it. It will help you, I think, at earlier levels, get more harass off with your Eidolons, which enhances that laning. So,
anyway, moving on to Shredder, aka Timber Saw, base strength increased by 3, intelligence growth increased from 1.8 to 2.4, so it can actually cast more shit. Chakram, initial mana cost rescale from 125, 150, 175 to 75, 125, 175. Chakram move speed increased from 800 to 900. I mean, the intelligence growth is greatly appreciated. You can actually spam more, but his biggest problem, and it still will remain, that it's ridiculously difficult to break a base with him. But, I mean, he is strong in mid-game teamfights, so I don't know. A slot may open up for him. I know if you read Clairvoyance's post, you saw that he's a big fan of Shredder, aka Timber Saw. But honestly, he just seems like a very, very situational pick at best.
the way I see this hero is you use him to dominate a 2v1 lane when he's the one. Because he can. If you've ever tried to lane 2v1 against a Goblin Shredder, you can't zone him. And then once he hits like level 5, he can just start spamming his stuff for free. And it does a gazillion damage to you. And you can't stop him. You need a tri-lane to beat this hero. Like, you just can't do a 2v1 against him. He's the anti-jungler hero for that reason. And I think what these buffs are is trying to make him into a sort of viable in a 1v3 scenario. Just with the base strength being increased by a little bit. I think that's what that is intended to do.
Well, maybe we'll see more Shredder play. He's definitely a fun hero to watch. He zips around. He's Spider-Man. He's Tarzan. More Tarzan than Spider-Man because he zips from tree to tree. But, I mean, he is a fun hero to watch in general. Moving on, Gyrocopter Flatcan cooldown increased from 20 to 30. Now, Gyrocopter, he has now made his way in towards the eastern scene. He is ridiculously powerful because he does a lot of early game damage, he does a lot of mid game damage, he does a lot of late game damage. This affects his late game DPS because you don't get two Flatcans off in a team fight as often, but I mean, this really doesn't change his role. He still does a lot of magical damage in the early game, and you still get the ridiculous splash range with your initial salvo. Maybe now you actually have to cast your salvo, or cast the Flatcan, wait for the duration to almost be up, engage, then wait the extra 10 seconds, and then cast it again. I don't know. This is probably not enough for Gyrocopter.
I'll stand by this. This hero's probably the winner of this patch in that he's the best hero, aside from maybe Syllabear, who came out with barely getting touched. This isn't a big deal. I was hoping for literally numbers tweaks on every single one of his abilities, excepting for maybe Missile. Because every one of his abilities are really, really good, and he only got a 2
or move speed nerf. He has 315 move speed.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this hero is just his design. When you look at how the hero was designed, he seems to be sort of a jack of all trades, master of non-hero. Like, he's always going to be decent. Sort of like old Potom, right? Like, that hero was always sort of decent, but never great. That's what I thought Gyrocopter was supposed to be, except he got buffed and buffed and buffed till he was really good, and then really good, and then he was really, really good. So, I think he needs more.
I have to agree with you. Huskar, one of my favorite heroes, base strength increased by 3, Burning Spear DPS increase, so you actually have an incentive to level it up because it does stack. Life Break HP cost increased because, I don't know why, Old Berserker's Blood has been reworked, so you no longer get damage, instead you get magic resistance. I'm not too sure how I feel about this. As a Huskar player, he's been removed from counts mode as well. This means he's more of a tank rather than a semi-carry. He's going to be difficult to bring down. He also attacks fast if we build him some DPS items. I guess this is a way so that he doesn't have to build tank, he can build more damage. But this, again, won't really fix him because he is probably the worst hero in Dota history, and I don't think this changes anything about him.
Well, here's the way I saw this. Huskar's issue.
Well, actually, he gets a significant amount of attack speed per stack. I didn't actually notice the number streak, but he does get 8, 12, 16, 20 compared to 3, 6, 9, 12. So that's pretty significant now that I think about it. So maybe I'm understanding it because actually with the increased life break costs, he will get so much attack speed early on that it won't be even funny. And that means his magic reduction will also be pretty ridiculous as well. So
Well,
actually, he could be. I don't know.
the
It's
reason
difficult.
why he was always bad was because like he was a great safe lane solo, I think, in a 1v1 situation, but he can't when he goes on someone to kill them, what happens is he goes on somebody and then he gets stunned and then he gets nuked and then he's dead, right?
Yep.
The issue, you can't, like everybody knows, you don't fight a Huskar by auto attacking him. You have to nuke him. Unless you're like a Templar assassin, in which case your auto attacks are kind of like a nuke anyway. But you nuke him and that's how you kill him. But if he has, I don't know how high it gets, but it gets pretty freaking high. You can't kill him with nukes anymore. Or you can, but it's really hard. Like killing him with nukes is now as hard as killing him with auto attacks, just because how fast he heals. And I don't know. The
Well, I mean,
fact
if
that
you look at
his
the
well, the magic resistance also. I don't think you mentioned on it. I might have spaced out, but you
I
the
mean, if you
burning
get
spears is magic, right? So
yeah, but if you get level 4 magic or level 4 Berserker's Blood with a level 1 life break, you get 35 additional magic resistance on the back of 1 life break. It's pretty strong.
that is really strong. So if you throw in all that magic resistance, and then you throw in all the damage you're doing with burning spears, which is a ton, by the way, except you don't take it, they do, because now you got magic resist. I'm gonna say the hero's still crappy, but I don't know.
He's designed to be an early game.
I'm looking to be proven wrong on this one.
He's
I would
designed to
not be
be
surprised if it's decent.
He's designed to be an early game monster. He wasn't really as dominating as he could be. Now I think that helps, and I'm a bit more excited now that I looked at the attack speed buff. I was just like, oh, well, now he's tank, but he actually attacks a lot faster as well. So I'm actually pretty excited with the changes overall, and I think his removal from God's mode is definitely needed because he is. It's going to be tricky to say how he will be utilized. He might be ridiculously overpowered on the back of him just being immensely tanky as well as doing immense amounts of DPS. Meanwhile,
He
moving
was
on.
taken out of captain's mode.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think it was
Oh, I
necessary.
completely missed you. Sorry. Invoker. I don't even want to read this. It makes me sad. This hero is so horrible. Go for
I
it.
mean, Bottle Crow, no longer as.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can't ever hit things. You'll be playing against a Queen of Pain, and you'll have 5 last hits of 5 minutes, and you'll be like, the player skill will be equal, and you'll be like, I can't do like, you can't do anything about it. You just can't get last hits. And it's weird because it was a buff to QW, except you can't go QW anymore. You can't do it. You have to get as many points in E as possible, or as fast as possible, simply because that's the only way you can last hit at all. And I think this hero is still like D tier.
Will the mana cost alacrity be the most significant thing because you have to go E in mid lane, so you can spam it more and maybe get more last hits?
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
You can't. This hero is not a mid lane hero. If you're winning with this hero in a mid lane, it means that there is a massive player skill differential, and this should not happen in competitive. So,
Alright, moving on to Io, aka Wisp. Spirits no longer provide vision except temporarily when they collide with an enemy hero. Overcharge HP/MP mana cost increase from 3.5 to 4.5. Wisp Fever has infected the East. What do you think about that, SK? You hate this hero, and he is, or he was, still powerful. Is this enough for Wisp?
you know what? I said that this hero was approached wrong for a really long time. I said that there were counters to him. People didn't know how to draft around him. And after a really long time, I'm going to eat my words. Maybe it's obvious to everyone else, but I finally think that just like even if you pick heroes that he can't gank, that you can't tether relocate to, there's a whole host of heroes, like CK especially, that make him a real hero in lane. And
I mean, the
point
thing
of him
about
is
Wisp is if he gets an advantage, he does so much because the other team is grouped up as 5 consistently. He just gives
Yeah.
you such a huge advantage if you manage to take an advantage. And I don't think these really fix that. So,
I think it did fix it. Because what I was getting at was I think there are some heroes that turn him into a laning hero now, just because you sort of get some damage with spirits. But now that spirits don't give vision, this is kind of weird. Okay, if you know how there's the little side nook and cranny in the side lanes that's like right near the tier 1 tower, but it's in the forest.
yep.
A
The
lot of
demon
times
spot or whatever.
you have the wisp standing there and tethering someone, so he can see if anybody tries to go on him. I don't. This is going to be really hard to explain without a video, but the point is, you can see without placing the ward whether or not people are going to go on you and kill you. You can't do that anymore. So if you're actually trying to harass, you can't see if they're turning around on you to just blow you up.
Okay, so you think it's good enough
It's
because
nice.
Wisp is weaken the laning phase, and this makes him a bit weaker, but he's still consistently still powerful if he gets an advantage. And
Well, in a safe lane scenario, he's the same. It doesn't matter if he's in the safe lane scenario, but in an offensive tri lane scenario, which is how you run him when you have a CK, it's a little bit of a nerf. So it's not huge. I think Icefrog really likes this hero, and he just really wants to keep it as is. I still think the hero's going to be played all the time.
yeah, I have to agree with you. Overcharge nerf, I don't think it's going to really make that big of a difference. Moving on to Juggernaut, Omni-Slash no longer jumps on Tombstone Zombies, big whoop. Keeper Light, base strength decreased by 2, big whoop. I mean, we don't really have to explain this. Keeper Light, I hate this hero, but he has been fading out. People know how to play against him
Thank
now.
God.
I know. He's fading out, and good riddance. But yeah, good enough in my opinion. Kunkka, he is all the trend in the eastern scene, and actually been picking up in the western scene. Ghost ship damage increased by 50 at all levels. X marks the spot. Mana cost decreased from 80, 90, 100, 110 to 80, which is very, very useful because, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I play Kunkka, X mana is always very difficult, especially when you whiff as many turns as I do. X marks the spot. Vision from 1,000 flying to 400 ground.
I honestly think that Kunkka came out of this with a net nerf. I do.
Really?
I think that the vision change is more important than the damage on Ghost Ship, and the X marks the spot mana cost. I don't think it's a huge deal. Most people prefer to get a bracer on him, which honestly the 3N is going to cover this. So,
I mean, was the vision such a huge issue? Because if you cast X, you're going to bring them back anyway. I mean, I guess before if you cast X, you could see if there were allies around him. That might be the thing.
I mean, it's not a huge. It's not like the point of the ability. I don't know. I just felt like anything that gives that much vision, even if it's for a short amount of time, I don't feel like that's the point of that spell. And I do feel as if it was a big deal simply because it lets you see where their people are hiding when they're going to come back in. So it actually lets you know if it's safe to throw on a ship or not.
That's fair. Alright, moving on to Legion Commander, dual bonus damage per victory increased from 10 to 10, 14, 18. Add to Captain's mode. He or she will probably be out soon. It'll be fun. I don't know how viable she or he will be. I don't really care. He will probably be viable because he has a pretty big AoE move speed thing, but I'm not too sure. I'm not going to make outlandish guesses until they actually get added. Any thoughts? No thoughts, probably not.
I have no thoughts on this hero. I don't even remember all the abilities, so I'm not qualified to talk about it.
That's fair. I don't think I'll go over a synopsis of the abilities. Lich, Chain Frost bounce count increased from 7 to 10. Okay. It doesn't really bounce in professional games. This doesn't really help because people know how to split up. Even in pub games, people know how to split up. So this really does... I mean, I guess if you get an AoE team fight lineup, Lich becomes more viable.
Yeah, I think this is a buff to Magnus, to be honest. I mean, not necessarily a buff to Magnus, but it works really well with him.
Yeah, I guess it helps Lich become more of an AoE teamfight hero, but he's still just not a good hero in general, I don't think.
Okay, this is one of probably the 3 most important things this patch in terms of hero nerfs.
Right. So when we first went over this patch, the heroes that we want to keep an eye out were Barada, Gyrocopter, Wisp, Lone Druid, Lifestealer, and, Shadow Demon, other heroes like that. Lifestealer, open wounds cast range decreased from 600 to 200, 300, 400, 500. How does this affect him?
This is an appropriate nerf. Here's the deal. Everybody likes to play that hero as an offensive tri-lane hero. That's just what you want to do with him. He destroys, and the way he does it is he can start a fight at any time. The range on slow at 600 at level 1 is so huge that you can just kill anything. You slow it and you kill it. Like you have to draft so far out of your way to even prevent that from maybe happening that it's absurd, like what you have to do to deal with that. So the thing is, you don't even need supports that have an initiation. Like you can get a Lina and a Leshrac and a Naix, because Naix is the initiation, because the slow is so good and it's from so long away. He's a carry who initiates, but the issue is you still, like the slow itself is just as good, but you need supports to actually push up and set themselves at risk to start this fight. So when you have a Shadow Demon now, a lot of times your Shadow Demon isn't going to be disrupting the person who's going to save the person who your Nyx is going on. Your Shadow Demon actually has to disrupt the main target to allow Nyx to get up to it.
Right.
You're one disable shorter in this tri-lane, basically, because you need to use one of the disables to get there. And that puts your supports in that tri-lane at a pretty significant risk. Also,
This is a
It's
nerf to
going to
chasing
decrease his
knives.
mid-game damage, just because you want to put skills into this instead of feast.
And it also decreases his chasing potential because the build is phase drum armlet. In a lot of scenarios, might be that you skip the drums. Sometimes you may replace phase with treads in certain scenarios, but this definitely hurts his chasing by a bit as well if you don't manage to max the open wound. So I think this was an appropriate nerf. He's still very difficult to kill in general. He's still a strong, if you get the Infest Bomb, which is just hilarious to watch in general, then he'll still have that. I think this does balance him pretty nicely for the most part.
I still think, I think he's still going to be banned.
Yeah, probably.
He's not permaban anymore because like by the time the qualifiers rolled around, he was permaban. I think he's first pick status now. I think I don't think this was the right way to go about nerfing him, but that's that's not really my job to say. I think it forces you to make a choice between damage and chase ability. In the mid game and early game, you actually have to draft your tri-lane a little bit differently.
Moving on to Lena, attack range increased from 625 to 635. She already had above average attack range, or above range average attack range, so she got buffed up even more. So now she is not in as big a risk, which is a bit surprising because she is a very strong tri-lane support in general, but I guess they want to buff her up a bit more. More power to her, I guess. Lion, or any thoughts on Lena?
Probably no thoughts.
Okay. Lion, mana drain, break, and cast range improved by 100. Okay, Ice Frog, mana drain. It exists. Thank you. Hagnum's Finger of Death cooldown decreased from 160, 140 to 160, 20. Lions, in general, unless they're played as mid, will probably never get Aghanim, so this will probably not make that big of a difference.
Well, I agree with you. Playing the devil's advocate, though, remember I mentioned the supportish heroes who are pretty decent at mid, but
like A. But the thing about that is that A can actually spam his ultimate. Finger of Death costs like 600 mana, and Hex costs like 400 mana. So
you're definitely right. Yeah, I was just trying to theory craft. I shouldn't do that.
I mean, this is not a relevant buff. It's cool in pubs because you can use it twice as many times. Other than that,
it's not gonna. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, he's just so mana intensive. I think he's underrated hero. I mean, he's still very good in terms of locking people down and has that bit of burst. But mana drain is just such a stupid spell. I mean,
he's a hero. I feel like he's a hero that you're forced into picking because someone picks up a storm and you're like, "Well, crap, we need a hex now, and it's our 5th pick. What are we gonna do?" And you're like, "Oh, I guess we have to draft a lion. Our tri-lane's gonna be crap."
I mean, mana drain is already the best spell in the game. Why do you need to make it better? So, moving on to the Lone Druid. This is probably the hero, along with Lifesteal and Bard, who probably deserve the most nerfs. Spirit Bear now has its HP drained by Armlet when activated. Spirit Bear bounty increased from 100 to 300. I am not a big fan of these nerfs, and I will explain in a bit, but we'll go with you first. I mean, the bounty, you can't really creep skip without as minimal risk anymore, or get the creeps on your side. You can focus on the bear, get a pretty huge bounty. I mean, you definitely have to be a lot more careful with the bear. You can't just push in with it recklessly anymore.
There are two heroes that are really, really good at killing the bear are Venomancer and Lena, because Lena's got 80 gazillion stuns at level 1, and Veno's got his Veno thing. All in all, the buff isn't going to affect good Lone Druid players. They don't lose their bear early game. They really don't.
I guess it makes it a little bit more difficult to risk repush because an increase of 200 gold is pretty significant. It can get you to your next item. It is significant,
but when you're whacking on a tier 3 tower, I don't think it's a huge deal if you lose it. It's like, okay, you got 300 gold, now we're going to summon and they want to take your racks. The big deal is the armlet.
Right. I mean, now you don't get that armor, you don't get the HP regen, you don't get, don't get that extra damage. Now armor is not really viable in Lone Druid anymore. It's just not worth it.
I'm not going to go that far, but I will say that this is by far and away the hero that I'm worst at in all of Dota. I hate playing him. I'm horrible at him. I don't know what I'm talking about in terms of, whether or not it's going to be viable to get it or not on him. I think it might, the best Lone Druid players might get it. But I don't think anybody aside from, maybe 10 people will continue getting it. And I don't even know if they will.
I think it's just too big of a investment might not be the most optimal choice.
Well, if you have a Juggernaut, they'll definitely get it.
I guess so. Moving on. Well, I just want to go into what I think they should have done with Druid. I think they should just not made him as tanky as he is without items. I think it's a bit silly that you can get a full inventory and just have a cloak on your bear. That's what I would remove from him. But I don't know. Some people disagreed when I mentioned that. Luminous thought, it's what makes Lone Druid unique. I don't know, but it's a nerf. We'll see. This probably
Well, the
he'll
thing
still
is,
be
it's more of
picked.
a bug fix than a nerf.
Yeah, but
Which
also the
is-
bounty is a nerf.
Yeah, the bounty is sort of important, but Lord of Avernus, who cares? The hero.
Yeah, I
the hero's
mean,
actually going to be decent, I think.
he's
Yeah,
good
and
in
defensive lane.
he's good in, he's okay in trial scenarios because the thing about it is the amount you cast Aphotic Shield is actually significant because he doesn't really have the best mana pool, and he's a melee support, and that's the reason why we don't really see Omni because he's a melee support. But the thing about
Yeah.
Baden compared to other supports is that he just needs no items. He might need like I don't know some form of mana regeneration. That's it. He doesn't need anything else. But in general,
Earned mana boots might be nice, but
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Wolf,
Lycanthrope.
one of my favorite heroes now. Now that he's not that good. Well, he's still okay. Armor increased by 1. Yay! Go Wolf.
Okay.
Okay.
Magnataur.
Magnataur damage decreased from 150, 225, 300 to 50, 125, 200. So that means that RP won't do as much damage. And combined with the Bile Crow nerf, Magnus, what will he do now? Where will he actually be laned?
He's still a mid laner, I think.
Okay.
I mean, Shockwave is so cheap. I felt like there were a bunch of ways that this hero could be fixed, and this is one of them. Basically, it's the root of the slowing down the dagger. The 100 damage on RP getting taken off isn't really a big deal once you hit mid game and like the team fights start coming out. Yeah, it's
It's significant until
significant,
Mag
but it's not
matches.
huge.
It's significant, but yeah, I mean,
The time when it's huge is when you're using it to solo kill people. You can't solo kill people anymore in mid lane with it. It just can't happen. You won't see it happen. You need like 2 to 3 more auto attacks to kill somebody now, whereas you couldn't before. And
this needed to happen considering Magnus's low cooldown on his ultimate.
this needed to happen like 6 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah, like you said, I guess Magnus can just rune control a bit better because Shockwave is an AoE cheap nuke that can be spammed relatively easily. So, yeah, he still can be played mid. His team fight potential has definitely dropped a bit. His lane potential is not really as strong as it could be. Now he might actually have to go for runes. But
Yeah.
he's
Well,
still...
the thing is, if you take off, maybe now he won't be 4-1 at 12 minutes. Maybe now he's 2-0. Here's the thing, though. S4 is probably only going to draft this hero for himself 90% of the time now, as opposed to 95%. So that's what this nerf was. It's a S tier hero that's now maybe only an A tier hero at worst.
Okay, moving on to Dusa. Old Stone Gaze was not that good. New Stone Gaze. Any unit facing Medusa will have its attack, movement speed, or movement and turn rate reduced by 50% until the end of the spell. If you accumulate 2 seconds time in total, considering the duration is 6 seconds, you will turn to stone where you are stunned for 3 seconds, have 100% magic resistance, and take extra damage from physical attacks.
I think this is pretty legit in like a really good change for Medusa because early game, it's not going to really do a lot because if she was getting away, I feel like maybe I'm wrong with this, but I feel like she would have gotten away anyway. With the old one versus the new one, It's late game where this is an issue. When you're trying to kill that Medusa late game, and well, say mid to late game, and you can sort of do it, but she'll actually start to damage you like when it gets to that point. It's not going to happen anymore because you're just going to get turned to stone, and now you just die. Because she's going to be damaging all of you with a split shot. I think this is a really, really well-designed change to one of my least favorite heroes in the game. So,
I mean, the thing
Shout
about
out.
Dusa is when you pick her, you're pretty much all in the late game, and this just makes her better in the late game, and it's cool in the early game.
I agree. It plays to her synergy of being useless for 40 minutes. So, I still think that she is literally the worst hero in the game, but it's a cool change.
Yeah, I don't think it's enough, but who's to say? She's been removed from Cad's mode, so I don't know. Ice Frog might think this ultimate is a bit too powerful, and considering it's very low cooldown, who knows? It might just be very, very ridiculous, but the magic resistance, of course, is going to be ridiculously negative in the early game because magic is just more powerful in general. But moving on to Meepo, innate magic resistance increased from 25 to 35%. Okay.
Who cares? It's Meepo. Nobody plays him. I mean,
No Tail
I
and
hate to have that
Gods
attitude.
disagree.
No Tail's, popping up in the champagne bottles, but he's the only one.
I mean, thing about Meepo is that he's a risky pick, and having a bit more survivability, it's helpful, but I don't think it'll increase his playability.
Potom, on the other hand, he got some pretty decent changes. I was really happy with all of these.
Unloon's arrow now deals up to 100 extra damage based on distance the arrow traveled. Moonlight Shout cooldown decreased from 160, 140, 120 to 140, 120, 100. Starfall will now choose a new target for the second star if the first died before impact.
She deals more damage. Like, that's what her kit is, right? Like, early mid-game damage. So, why not, right?
But it's not going to be enough because she's still not going to be useful in these games. She just needs too many items. She needs too many items to deal damage.
Side lane solo, perhaps. I don't know.
Like if you
My friend, and I know Fluff is a really big proponent of this too. They both love support Morana. Big time. So
I guess that could be a bit more relevant because the Moonlight Shadow is still a good ultimate. But I don't think this will really affect her playability.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think she's probably not going to be picked. It's quality of life almost with the Starfall buff, but I don't know. She's still a no for me. Don't pick.
Yep. Moving on to Morphling, base attack time improved from 1.7 to 1.6. Morph is just way too tricky to balance. Either he's ridiculously broken or just not viable. I don't know if this changes.
This buff was, I think it was enough to put him over the stage to first pick, first ban, completely broken. What was I struck thinking? That's sarcasm. Sometimes it doesn't work on the internet.
I mean,
this does nothing.
It synergizes with Morph because you get more agility, and that means that it can attack faster, but his main deal is mana cost. It's not really the late game, where it's a big issue for Morph. It's the early game to mid game, where he's not very powerful.
It's the getting to the late game part.
Yep, moving on to Naga, Riptide cooldown, rescale from 19, 16, 13, 10 to 10 at all levels. Okay, Naga, you want to get your way back in the competitive scene.
Okay, I guess. I mean, I really think that this hero is a support hero, and I get called out on this a lot, but I feel like with Riptide as not necessarily just a farming thing, but you can use it as like a nuke, as a support hero nuke. You have Net, which is just as good as support, and the illusions are really bad anyway. I think that it's a pretty good answer to make, but I've only ever seen Russian teams run it as a support.
I mean, this will help her.
Team does it, and I know I've definitely seen Navi do it, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, Liquid's probably done it as well because Fluff is a fan of those weird support heroes. I remember Eternal Envy on the old No Time Hunter ran it. But, I mean, this will help her farm, it'll help her harass more, but it'll definitely help her farm because by that point, Riptide will be maxed. So this might be a bit more viable option to have Naga as a carry, but it's still...
The way I see this, actually, is not a helping her farm. It's you get 2 nukes off in a fight in a tri-lane. Fights in tri-lane.
Well, that's if you're max a spell, and by that point, you're level 7.
No, I'm saying it's 10 at all ranks.
Oh yeah, it is 10 at all ranks. Derp. Okay, yeah, then yeah, this is.
It helps in tri-lane.
Yeah, it does.
Good at lower, being better at lower levels is tri-lane thing. So.
Yeah, it's AOE. It's minus armor. Okay, I stand corrected.
Okay, check this out. Necro won the patch. Of all the heroes, he's the winner, and I'll explain really in depth why, or at least a little bit in depth. But
if a unit dies under Reaper's Scythe, it'll be credited to Necrolite. Thank God, because before it was an insta-kill, right off the bat. Now, when they changed it so that damage is, added up during the duration, it's just well, I'll never get the kill because the target will probably die anyways. So thank God he got that. Thank God, because I do like playing Necrolite from time to time. Agnum's Scepter, Reaper's Scythe now causes Buyback to be disabled for heroes on its death.
Okay, so here's the deal. Obviously, a unit dying into Reaper's Scythe is really, really good, right? It gives you, you heal for 600, 400, something absurd.
Yep.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. You heal for a lot. But that's not what the big deal is. The big deal is that Necrolite, I think 2 patches ago, he got changed to be a really, really good 1v1 safe laner. Almost untouchable. Only a couple of heroes could go toe-to-toe with him. And he could force people out of lane. with Bottle Crow stopping those people from, sort of staying in lane, all of a sudden, he will dominate hardcore in the safe lane solo. So he gets up to a great start, right? But you're thinking, oh, what does he do? He's just a Necrolite. He just pushes, right? With an offensive tri-lane, and it doesn't even need to be a hard carry, and this is while I'm going to get to it, you can have something like a CK, a Juggernaut, whatever. Probably like a Juggernaut because it's good at ending the game. In your offensive tri-lane, you get to a big lead, you snowball, and then you don't necessarily need a lot of items on your stuff. You need to just have map control and be in that winning position where you're in control of the map. And then they got their carry that they farmed up in the safe lane, right? Like a Gyrocopter, Void, whatever, what flavor of the month they're playing. But a lot of times you can't win the scenario when you have an offensive tri-lane and a safe lane farmer just because their carry that they invested everything into dies, buys back, defends the base, and then you just can't, like, your lanes will never be okay to win. With Necrolite disabling buyback, that's not a problem anymore. Like, offensive tri-laning got so good because he's so good in the safe lane. Now offensive tri-laning is good to begin with, and it's even better this patch. You kill the person that they were defending with the safe lane with, and then you just end the game. He's so good.
And
this hero is
also,
going to A tier. A tier.
Reaper's Scythe, I have to agree with you, but I think the bigger thing is that the kill is credited to Necrolite because, I mean, before I was like, I wasn't actually looking at the changes. I was like, oh, this is not really a significant change. You're like, yes, this is really significant. Now I look at it again. The biggest thing, in my opinion, is actually the unit dying under Reaper's Scythe. Because the problem with Necrolite is that oftentimes when you cast Reaper's Scythe, you don't actually get the status boost. But now you can heal for so much extra, and that means your teamfight will just be ridiculously sustainable, as well as doing immense amounts of damage. And that means you get more ticks of Heartstopper Aura in general. I mean, this is a very, very, very welcome buff. And the thing about Necrolite is that he can still be fought against because he can be silenced. He doesn't build into BKB very naturally, so it can be chain stunned down. If you kill him, you remove a lot of the teamfight presence. So I think this is a very, very nice solution that IceFrog just made.
This is my favorite thing that happened this patch, hands down.
Yep.
I expressed my enthusiasm, but yeah. And also, just one more tiny thing. The thing you were talking about, getting the last hit. The thing is, it's super important to get the last hits on Necrolite, right? Like, we all agree with that.
Definitely.
If you use Reaper Scythe and don't get a last hit, you're because you don't build mana regen anymore just because you need to get the last hit. You don't build mana regen or mana pool. You just build pure tank. And if you miss that last hit with Reaper Scythe, you can't heal anything. And then you just are like, okay, I guess we're going back to base, boys. But
I mean, that's what happened oftentimes when you use Reaper Scythe. At that point, because you want to make sure you have enough damage after magic reduction, and it's difficult to calculate magic reduction in a team fight. But now it's just like, alright, I can make sure, and I will actually have enough to heal my team. So it might even be good to just kill it, even if it's at 10% HP, just so you can just heal up your team by an immense amount. It makes fights 4v5 for a lot. So I don't know. This hero is really, really strong. Well, he's going to be competitive, definitely, and might be a first phase pick. Nerubian Assassin, aka Nyx, mana burn, drain, and damage decrease from 5 times so that it scales from 3.5 up to 5 times, and mana burn cost is 100 at all levels. This makes Nyx a bit weaker in Trials in the early going, but he still scales as well as ever. I think he's still going to be a strong hero in general, but this helps.
The issue is the solo killing potential goes way, way down. So you're losing maybe 40-ish, 50-ish damage on your nuke on mana burn at level 1.
Definitely.
Which means you can't solo kill the enemy supports anymore, which is an issue. He's still going to be great, but a lot of the big solo killing power is only going to be for him if he's in the solo mid now role. But as a tri-lane support, I don't think he's going to really be able to solo kill people.
Yeah, but in competitive games, you never really see Nyx go for solo kills. He always has a teammate backing him up. A lot of times, I think. Maybe
I think a lot of times they might get 1 or 2 off. It's not like it's a gang train going, but Fear, gets 1 or 2 solo kills off in the game.
I mean, Impale is still good, Vendetta is still good, Spike Carapace is still really good. I mean, he's still going to be a very competitive hero.
He's not going to be first ban, first pick, and he was actually trending away from that. People will learn to deal with him. He'll still show up, but I think it's a pretty good change.
Night Stalker, 100 Night attack speed rescaled. So that's better earlier on. Movement speed remains the same. This will not affect Night Stalker. Night Stalker is probably not going to be as viable because of Bottle Crow nerf. But sad, Night Stalker is really fun to watch. He always makes for exciting games.
I disagree. I think he's more viable. Because Night Stalker doesn't benefit from Bottle Bottle Crow spam, and because a lot of times you don't really take a lot of damage from people harassing you just because you're so tanky, they don't even bother. And you don't really benefit from the mana getting from a Bottle Crow. So while you do it, it's not like a huge deal.
I disagree with that because you actually need Void for last hits if you can't get the creep. And the thing about Night Stalker, even though he has 6 base armor, you will take a lot of auto attacks just running to and fro because his base movement speed is below average. So I think he does need Bottle Crow.
Okay. I just think we're going to disagree on this one.
Okay, that's fair. Moving on to
But the big deal, I actually wanted to say the big deal with this buff is a lot of times you want to see, God Kill Them All goes with his build of Foreign Void, Foreign Passive, nothing else at level 8. But the issue is obviously you want 1 level in Silence, but the points at Hunter of the Night were so good. They're significantly buffed now, so you'll be, say, level 8 or level 7. You'll have 2 points in the attack speed, Hunter in the Night, and you'll have 1 in the Silence. It's actually like you can afford to put 1 in the Silence now. You don't have to skip it for that, out of control mid game, which is, I think, a really good change.
Yeah, versatility is definitely a hallmark of Dota. That's why it is ridiculously successful game. Obsidian Destroyer movement speed increased from 310 to 315. Moving on.
What hero was buffed? It's stupid. That's not a minor. Like that's okay. It is minor, but it's less minor than it seems because that hero's now he's faster than all the mid lane heroes, and he can just run at you and imprison you, and you can't do anything about it. I don't think that hero should have been buffed. I think that hero is really strong. I think we saw that in the Western qualifiers. If you have a Tran or something and an Obsidian Destroyer, you cannot stop that hero from having an amazing time. So, anyway.
Alright. I don't have anything to contribute to OD. I have no opinion on the matter whatsoever. Moving on to Ogre, Ignite DPS increased so that it's better. It still won't really make a difference because you get Ogre for Fire Blast and Bloodlust, mainly Bloodlust. Omni Knight added Aghanim Scepter. Guardian Angel Alien becomes global and affects civilians, including regen. Omni Knight, the thing about that is that your lane is kind of lame. So, I don't know. I guess
Omni Knight isn't. You can't lane him to begin with, and even if you can figure out a way to lane him, you can't get an Ag Scepter on him. This is meaningless.
Yeah. This is not useful, but I mean, who knows? Now that Bottle Crowing is not an option, soaring Omni Knight mid into Scotty Rush. Let's go.
Doll. I think the last time you tried to do that in the game,
we lost abysmally. We lost abysmally. Because your friend failed a gank at level 1, and then the Slark got a double kill, so it wasn't my fault.
Okay, well, we'll go with that.
Okay.
Panda and new change, I kind of liked it.
Aghanim's Primal Slip now gains your current level of Drunken Brawler. Fire Panda no longer upgrades damage to the Aghanim Scepter. It roughly has the same damage with Drunken Brawler now. So Aghanim Scepter is now it already was ridiculously powerful on Brewmaster because it increased the duration from 19 to 26, and it made the spirits better in general. Now you get Evasion and a critical strike on top of that. This is pretty cool, but it only matters to Aghanim Scepter. But I guess this places Aghanim Scepter into higher priority for Brewmaster in general.
I mean, I don't think there's any more reason to get it over anything else, just because it was already so good, but it just sort of makes him better of an anti-carry late game. Phantom Assassin, blur leveling evasion increased. I don't think this is a big deal. I think this is like a, shout out Load, I see you, buff.
The Eastern qualifiers, teams were picking it, because Loda, Elgod in China, just won the hearts of so many.
He's the only Western with a letter in front of his name and then God, right?
Vigos was, but probably not anymore.
They had Vigod too, right?
Vigod, yeah. Probably not anymore, I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like we're getting more and more on a tangent as this extends.
I mean, it's gone on for quite a long time. We'll just try to rush through this. Phantom Lights, Spirit Line, Stop Walk, Juxtapose, and Phantom Edge Illusions damage dealt from 25 to 20%. Stop crying, Phantom Lights, or Criers. That's basically what this says. We nerfed him.
That's exactly
Go
what
away.
that is. The hero isn't even good. He just loses now. People know how to deal with him, and now it's just... Basically, this is just a nerf to say, hey, shut up, I nerfed him, don't talk to me.
Cancer Lancer, guys. Moving on to Phoenix, Sunray HP costs per second increase from 3% to 4%. I don't actually give any sorts of fuck. Pudge, Flesh Sheep, Strength bonus increase from 0.9, 1.2, 1.5, 1.82, 1.52, 2.5. Okay, so...
This is a biggish deal.
Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of strength now with level 4 Flesh Sheep. You get a lot of strength even with level 3 Flesh Sheep. So... He gets more and more tanky, but...
With Bottle Crow out of the picture, he's a better hero.
Okay. I didn't even think about that.
I don't think he's going to be picked.
It might go back to respect ban for Navi status.
You know what? Maybe this isn't even good. I just want this to be a good buff so that I can see Dendy play him again. I haven't seen him play that hero for like
Yeah.
6 months. Anyway,
Pugna, one of my favorite mids, and I think is probably the most underrated hero in the game, in my opinion. Now the blast structure damage increased from 33% to 50%. Decrepify can now target 2, so and so. Some nice synergy with Undying. And the Nether Blast now does more damage to towers. It now does, I think, 162.5 damage, something like that, because I think Blast does 325 and has a 5.5 second cooldown. So he pushes even better if that was possible. So
keep a keep an eye on this hero for.
I think he's ridiculously underrated, especially with
I
burst
mean,
damage
the
becoming.
Necrolite hit synergy with him and Necrolite is so good, and you have an offensive tri-lane with like 3 stuns in it, and you just end the game.
And if you place the ward correctly, you just destroy spellcasters. So
That too.
Razor, a hero that I think is underrated in the mid lane and sucks everywhere else. I have Storm duration increased to 30. Okay, that doesn't matter because I have Storm is still shitty. I have Storm strike interval decreased from to lower in general. Unstable current move speed increased to more. Okay, I think this makes him more annoying to deal with, but I think I have Storm is just really just not a good ultimate. It's just
Yeah, I
really
agree.
bad, and I don't think this changes much, if at all.
He's a great safe lane solo hero.
He's a great
in
mid.
one lane.
He's like the best mid in my opinion.
Um, I disagree. I don't think he has either the team fight utility or the
No, but just in the laning sense, 1v1 mid.
No. Okay. I don't think he's the best. I'm going to disagree with you. I think he's underrated mid, but I think he's a really good safe lane solo. And if like you can put him there to beat a Syllabear, literally, you put him one-on-one with a Syllabear. I don't know why a team hasn't done this yet. The Syllabear will get 2 less hits a minute. It doesn't matter how good they are. I've done it against amazing lone druid players. They can't get anything. So if you do the safe lane solo thing, aggressive tri lane, yada yada, I've said it a million times.
It's what DD did with against Mouse. They ran the Razor against the Lone Druid. Lone Druid was able to last it a bit better than you were saying, but still, it was very, very hard. Razor did beat him very convincingly. Yeah. So, I mean, he's a situational hero. I don't know why they're buffing his ultimate. I guess they're just
that's just weird.
Yeah.
They should be remaking that. Ricky Maru, permanent invis fade time decreased from not a lot to a lot. 2.25, 1.5 to 3.21. I don't think it's a big deal. I think you agree with me.
I think I agree with you because that doesn't really solve the issue. Sand King invisibility fade delay when exiting Sandstorm improved from 0.3, 0.6, 1.9, 1.5 to 1.5 at all levels. So I guess at level 1 Sandstorm you will be invisible and stay invisible after you leave the Sandstorm for a concentration at all levels. That's pretty cool. So you don't really have to get more than 1 point in Sandstorm ever. Sandstorm now has a smoother damage interval, so it does more consistent damage over time, I guess.
It's a buff, because a lot of times you could just poke on down the edge of it, and it wouldn't break your Blink Dagger, and then you could, poke out, so...
Okay.
Shadow Demon, though.
Shadow Demon. This is a hero...
This is a big deal.
Yep. Base intelligence decreased by 3. Shadow poison no longer gives vision over the targets with the debuff. So that means when you're casting a projectile, you still get vision along the path. But if you hit a target and after the projectile path fades, you no longer get vision of the target, even if they are still affected by the debuff of the shadow poison. And considering the range of shadow poison, I mean, this was very, very necessary in my opinion. Because you still get it with the range, it's still very spammable, but you no longer just see all if you hit a target.
Yeah, the hero is so flexible. Like, the hero isn't amazing at any one thing, but he's so absurdly flexible and, like, does sort of everything that I feel like giving vision over everybody when they're running away is kind of a little bit silly. Shadow Fiend.
Well, just to go back to Shadow Demon.
Oh, go for it, yeah.
Is this enough? Do you think he's still, like, an A tier or S tier support?
I didn't think he needed to be...
I mean, he's S tier in the Eastern scene. Not so much
I know he's S
scene.
tier, but I don't know. I just see him and I don't see like a powerhouse hero, like someone who's annoying. I just see somebody who's like pretty decent. So I think a way of nerfing him wouldn't be to, take this ability and, smash it to the ground. I think, just take away one sort of medium-ish thing that he does, so he does one less thing. I think it's pretty decent. Tentative yes on it being enough. It might not be. He might still be a little too flexible, show up too much in drafts, but I think it's okay.
Okay, moving on to Shadow Fiend. Requiem of Souls rescaled from 15, 20, 25% to 20 at all levels. Requiem of Soul damage reduction increased from 15, 20, 25% to 50 at all levels. So if you get hit by Requiem, even if it gets hit by just the tip, your carry just doesn't hit for nearly as hard. Pretty cool. I don't know
It
if
is
this
very
affects
cool.
anything. It's cool. It's maybe it makes it a bit more of an anti-carry. I don't know. I don't play Shadow Fiend ever. Uh,
Not
it's
many people do anymore. It's kind of sad.
I
I mean,
mean,
you
this
have to
could make
sort of
him
save
better.
them.
I guess the Bottle Crow would definitely help him because now he can race spam and get the runes majority of the time.
Yeah, Bottle Crow was always a thing that hurts him because he can, he doesn't need mana that much. He's a Shadow Fiend.
And he
just
will always have rune control because once the runes are spawning, all right, 3 raises, waves pushed, go
Yeah.
go away. Well, I get this rune. I think that probably helped him more than anything.
Yeah, Shadow Shaman got a.
This
Uh,
is this is pretty cool. Agnum Scepter, Mass 7 words damage, increased by 30 at level 1, 30 at level 2, and 30, I think, at level 3. Yeah, it got increased by 30 damage per ward at all levels.
how many wards are there?
The same number, I think.
Yeah, but how many are how many
I
are
think
there?
it's 7? 7? 6 or 7.
I want to maybe 8. I don't know.
I think it's 6 or
Around that.
7. I think it used to be
So
like...
let's say it's hitting for an extra 150 or more for each time it attacks you. That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about it is it doesn't help support Shadow Shaman whatsoever. It helps
Yeah.
mid lane Shadow Shaman, like it helps mid lane AA and mid lane whatever the hero we discussed because I completely forgot about it. But
Yeah. Silencer.
Global Silence now affects sleeping units. Okay, I guess Bane and TC or ET care about that. Added Agnum Scepter for a Silencer. Applies the current level of Curse of the Silent to all units and increases ultimate duration by 1 second.
And that would be sick if he could ever get to Aghanim Scepter. You can't run him mid, he'll get smashed. You gotta run him as a support, and he won't get there.
Okay, that pretty much sums up my opinion. Skelly King, my favorite hero, because you don't have to do anything with him. You don't have to think. Reincarnation Slow now affects attack speed as well. Cool. Reincarnation Slow happens immediately upon death rather than after reincarnating. Thank you. Actually, I don't know. I would have appreciated a buff so that it's scaled with that because you reincarnate 3 seconds afterwards, but I guess it's still useful. Moral Strike, so you still get the passive critical strike chance, but now if you activate it and you pay a bit of mana, you get 20% of the max HP pool of the target added towards you. And it temporarily drains it. It drains for 7 seconds, and then it returns it. So it helps him with a bit more burst potential. You can get that critical strike 1 level early on. It's quite a bit of damage. 20% of max HP is definitely very, very useful. And I think his critical strike is as good as ever, so this is just buff him up. This probably doesn't affect anything in regards to his viability.
I think it might. Because every time there's something like this, okay, this is a weird remake. Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, this is weird. And when something weird happens like this, normally it's because Icefrog wants us to be a counter to a specific hero, and I can't figure out what it is yet. But I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be really good against somebody, and I just can't think of who it is because I'm really
against
sleepy and my brain's fried.
The buffs.
What'd
the
you say?
Huskar. It's against Huskar now because Huskar OP.
Clearly.
Moving on, Slardar.
Keep an eye on him as a fringe pick. He might be decentish now. I don't think so, though.
Moving on to Slardar. Bash damage type from magical to physical. Sprint cooldown decreased from 40 to 28. So the bash damage type from magical to physical is very significant because his amplify damage, of course, reduces your armor by a ridiculous amount. So having it physical is going to help him out quite a bit in terms of his DPS potential. Sprint cooldown decreased from 40 to 28. One of the big things that irked me about Slardar is that when he was, average tier, they nerfed sprint so that it was 15% at all levels rather than like 10 and then 15% at the maximum level. But now you can always have sprint up, I guess, for the most part, minus a couple of scenarios. So I think Slardar has potential, but it's difficult to say for the very least. I think he definitely has potential.
He's very good in certain situations, but teams are always sort of hesitant to pick him. Like, we could pick him when he's really niche, and we haven't practiced with him that much, and he's probably a little bit better than our generic Gyrocopter, which we could pick, and they played it a gazillion times. So it's not that a lot of times it's not that the heroes are bad or that teams don't even recognize it. It's that they're like, well, we've run Juggernaut a million times. Let's just go with that.
I mean, if the metagame transitions into more of a chasing-oriented metagame, Slaughter will definitely become a lot more popular, and the physical damage type on his bash is definitely going to help out his damage output. So it's difficult to say at this stage. It really depends on how the game shapes up from here until TI3. Moving on to Sniper, Shrapnel AoE increased by 40. Don't care, Sniper is still not good.
Yeah.
Spirit Breaker, Charge of Darkness will now also greater bash its target. Yes, because now it also affects, instead of only affecting the target runs through, it now affects the target as well. The Greater Bash portion of Charge of Darkness will go through BKB since Greater Bash goes through BKB. So that means before, when you got to the target, you'd stun him, but you wouldn't do that much damage. If you got a bash, you would do that increased damage, but now you can get a Greater Bash and still have a chance to bash. So it actually gives a lot of damage to Charge of Darkness. This is pretty cool for Spirit Breaker. Again, I don't really know how this affects his viability. He's pretty garbage in a trial lane, probably. He's probably garbage in a safe lane scenario. But, I mean, he might be an anti-carry because it goes through BKB. I'm not too sure. I love this change. I'm not too sure how this will shape up. It probably won't really change him that much. He might become a niche peak at best.
He's going nowhere.
Sad life.
Storm Spirit. Small buffs.
Electric Vortex cooldown decreased from 20 to 2120, 1918. Not too sure why they buffed Storm. I think Storm was, fine as he is, but they're making him better. Shouts to Blitz.
Yeah.
Tauren Chieftain, Ancestral Spirit, Vision type from flying to ground, thank you. Natural Aura increased from 20, 40, 60, 80 to 25, 50, 75, 100. I think this hero
This is a huge nerf. The whole point of that hero right now is that you can get control over areas. Like when you're trying to contest Roshan, you can like put it uphill or like put it into their base, and you can just put it places and it sees, and now it doesn't, and it's a huge deal.
I think it would be a huge deal if in the last patch they didn't add that you can micro it around. I think it's still a pretty big deal, but now that you can micro it, it might not be as big a deal as it would have been.
Yeah, but if you're trying to run it like into the trees around the Rosh pit, or like in, I don't know, like by a tower uphill, you can't just put it in a place where you want it to be, or like sort of near where you want it to be, and then you see something and then you zone in on them. You already have to put it in the right place to begin with.
I mean, you can put it somewhere and then micro it into the place you want to be with, but I mean, the enemy would just see now.
Fair enough.
I think he'll still be, he hasn't yet been introduced into Dota 2 Captain's Mode. He's a very powerful hero. I think he'll still remain a very powerful hero. It's definitely a nerf to the Vision, but having that aura bounce it out, it's not as bad. But yeah, I think he'll still be a very powerful pick when he eventually gets introduced. Terrorblade Conjure Image Illusion duration increased from 25 to 32. Sunder minimum HP exchange decreased from 33, 28, 23%, 25, 20, 15%. I'm voting for this hero for the companion thing. Fuck techies. Moving on to Tidehunter. Ravage AoE rescaled from 825, 925, 1025, 1025 at all levels. The thing about Tidehunter is that why we get Tidehunter, we get Magnus. His cooldown's longer.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Cooldown's longer. Travel speed is not instant. It doesn't suck you in. It's a longer duration disable. Tidehunter is going to remain a fringe pick.
Yeah, tiny.
Toss cooldown decreased from 10 to 9. You can now toss the instant runes. Cool.
That's
so
cool.
If you do dual lane mid, you can toss your lane partner to the rune, and they can just say, haha, I got the rune now, bitch. And the other person will be very, very sad. That's the only thing I can see being tossed to unit runes being reasonably effective.
Yeah.
Treant Protector. Leech
Why would Frog buff Treant Protector?
I don't know. He loves him. Apparently, according to everybody.
I don't get it.
He's a very, very, anti-aggressive hero.
I don't want to say anti-fun, but I lied. I do want to say anti-fun. This show's legitimately anti-fun.
24% to 28%. Leechy's healing effect no longer ends when the target dies, so that means he gets a full boost of healing, so he actually remains relevant after the target dies. So that means everybody will live even longer than they already did. Oh my god, this hero is fucking a hero.
I wish that his name rhymed cancer, so I could call him like Cancer Protector or something. Anyway, Troll Warlord. This is actually a really big deal.
This is the hero
aside,
that...
This is one of the biggest deals this patch.
The consensus was when Troll was introduced in Captain's Mode, or if he would be introduced in Captain's Mode as he was, he would probably be the most powerful hero in the game. Battle Trance cooldown increased from 20 to 30. Battle Trance duration decreased from 10 to 7. Very, very necessary. The thing about Troll is that he's very versatile in most lane matchups. He's ridiculously powerful as a trial and carry. He pushes better than basically any other hero in the game, barring a Scylla Bear. This is very, very necessary, especially... I don't know if it's
Put a
enough though.
Syllabear or a Nature's Prophet or a Tiny on
I'm
a team
I'm just
camp,
go-
and
I'm
you
just gonna
get
say
there.
that I'm glad that he's not introduced in Council yet.
Yeah, I don't think this is nearly enough. I think he's still first pick, first ban material as is.
Yep. Moving on to Tuskar, Snowball cooldown decreased from 24 to 21, so you can spam it a bit more frequently. Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
guess.
he's a fringe pick as it is, a very, very fringe, the fringiest of fringe picks. Maybe it'll be a fringe pick now, rather than a fringy fringe pick. God, how many times can I say the word fringe? Who knows? Undying Solar
Probably.
cast range increased from 650 to 750. That's cool.
Yeah, no big deal.
I mean, if it's Trine versus Trine, Undying will definitely become more popular, but that needs to be seen.
Yeah.
Ursa,
Sure
Fairy
swipes.
Swipes duration increased from 6 to 15. Thank you, because now you can actually attack multiple targets and still switch. And also, if you get bashed, if you get locked down in a team fight, the stacks don't always go away. So I'm actually a pretty big fan of this buff. I think it makes him a bit more viable.
Yeah. I think that he's a decent hero this patch, actually. Especially against snakes. Like that's why people were picking him. Vengeful Spirit, though, I don't understand why Icefrog keeps buffing her stats, but he does, and I still don't think that this hero is good, even though I love her so much.
You get more base strength, you get more strength growth. Nether swap cast range rescale from 600, 900, 1200 to 650, 925, 1200. So the cast range is basically the biggest deal, but other than that, it's really hard to say. The thing about Venge is that she puts herself in such a dangerous situation that it's very difficult to get anything out of her besides swap. And the swap will make a huge difference in a lot of engagements, but I don't know, if there's more roaming strategies, Vengeful Spirit is probably the best roamer because she can cast 2 stuns at level 1.
Yeah. I feel like she's not really a roamer anymore so much as she is like a mid-game DPS booster for your Templar Assassin or something.
Yeah, she's more of a pusher, I guess. Moving on to Veno. Poison Sting duration increased from 6, 7, 8, 9 to 6, 8, 10, 12.
This is important. What a lot of people are doing right now in Venomancer is just completely skipping awards or getting 1 point in it, and by level 8, having both of your your slow and then your poison sting maxed, you deal so much damage. If their mid tries to man up on you or something, you can just turn around and kill them. Like a lot of people are doing this build right now, and this is a buff to that build, so it's a pretty big deal.
I'll take your word for it, because I've never seen that build. And Venomancer has fallen out of the competitive scene, but I think he's an interesting hero. So I wouldn't be, too disappointed if he made his way back into the competitive scene. I'd probably actually be very, very excited. Moving on to Viper. Corrosive Skin affects any damage source rather than just regular attacks. Viper Strike is no longer removed by Dark Pack or Kraken Shell. This does not really matter. The Corrosive Skin buff is very much appreciated. Unfortunately, the thing about Viper is that he's a single target DPS that doesn't do that much DPS. He has shit stats, he has really bad movement speed, and overall can't do
He needs a
that
remake.
much outside the laning phase.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Winter Wyvern. I don't know what this hero does. I don't
He
remember all the
is
stuff, so
like a support that can turn. He's actually cool because his ultimate actually makes that his opponents attack the person that he focuses. So it's cool.
Oh yeah, I remember that now.
I mean, he's obviously underpowered. That's why Icefrog buffed him, and then they nerfed the flying vision. I don't know what to say. He's there. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Witch Doctor. Death Ward cast range rescaled from 300, 350, 400 to 400 at all levels. Maledict cast range increased from 400 to 525. And now
That's
this
kind of
is
important.
yeah, no, this is like not even troll. I'm not sure why we don't see like 4 or even like mid-soul Witch Doctor, because this is Death Ward. If you pick up Aghanims, wins team fights by itself. It's just and the Maledict cast range is definitely greatly appreciated, because the thing about it was that the AoE is small and the casting range is very, very short. So you always have to just waste a lot of time walking in and positioning yourself so you can actually get it off. Now you don't have to really waste as much time walking forward, and that means you can worry more about positioning and getting it off faster. So the Witch Doctor is a hero that I think is grossly underutilized, and he's a very strong trial versus trial hero in general, in my opinion.
In a defensive scenario, not in an offensive one.
I think he has potential in an offensive one.
I will disagree with you on that.
His base damage is amongst the highest of supports.
Yeah, but his stun's useless because people just split. Like, there's two types of supports, the way I see it. There's a support that does things, and there's a support that prevents things from happening. He's a support that prevents things from happening, because when people converge on a target, that's the only time stun's good. Otherwise, stun's just going to be useless.
I think he'll be picked more, but
Okay.
I don't know. Ancient Django of Endurance, 750 to 800 recipe cost. People will still buy
Made
drums.
me sad. I buy that item every single game.
Everybody buys that item every single game.
I don't know.
Mortician, HP regen decreased from 8 to 7. Okay.
Assault. This is actually pretty important. This is a fairly huge buff to assault
This is
pickups. Yeah.
pretty
It's
ridiculous.
big on Syllabear, Nakes. Who else does it?
Beastmaster? Like, you can get it on any aura person.
Yeah. I mean, Beastmaster doesn't do it as much. I'm
No,
thinking
well,
people
not
actually build assault.
not AC, but like people also pick up Vlad's.
Well, the thing is, a lot of times when you have an AC on your team, if you don't have one, someone's going to build a Vlad's just for the armor. Usually.
Yeah, I mean, Alk.
But
Alk could get it as well.
now, a lot of times you don't build the Vlads if someone has the AC, just because you're like, oh, we already have it. We don't even need the damage. Not worth it. Now it is. So
I mean, people were building AC anyways. People, like you mentioned, Nyx, Lone Druid,
no, but
Alk, DK.
my point is, it's not that this isn't a buff to AC. This is a buff to Vlads. Because people who build AC are going to build it anyway, but a lot
Right.
of times having an AC prevents someone from building a Vlad's. So now, if there is an AC to begin with, someone else might still build the Vlad's. It's a buff to that item. It's kind of weird, but
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, albeit in a very terrible way. But yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
it's good. Both items got better. Well, Vlad's got better more than AC. BKB. This item will always receive nerfs because it will always remain a very controversial item in general. So it goes down to 4 seconds and 50-second cooldown. Is this enough? Probably, but
I don't think it needs a nerf. I think it's fine, but I think it's whatever. I don't really see it as a big deal.
yeah, I mean, it's might
It
encourage
nerfs,
people.
it nerfs it to people who build BKB really early game, like a Shadow Fiend or a Gyrocopter, but that's
yeah.
about it.
It might help. It might encourage people to actually rebuy a BKB because 4 seconds is actually not a long time. Like that's a duration of a lasso or a roar.
Yeah.
Blade Mail, armor increased from 5 to 6, damage return cooldown decreased from 22 to 17.
Whatever. I mean,
Bloodstone, initial charges increased from 6 to 8, can be activated to instantly kill yourself. And when you activate it, that means you get the AoE heal for your allies, and you still probably get the shorter respawn time.
you also die. That's
You also
part
die.
of that.
But that means if you have it, and if you're at like 10 HP and you use it, you can just heal your team and get that shorter respawn time, and the other team doesn't get experience or gold, so you preserve your streak. That's probably pretty important for momentum-based heroes. This might encourage people for like Queen of Pain, Storm
No,
to pick it
Queen
up
of Pain
more.
will never build this item ever. And Storm isn't even going to build it. No, who builds this item right now?
Nobody
one.
right now.
Yeah. I don't think people are going to start building it because of this. This is just a whack change. I don't get it.
I mean, it's for heroes that like to get a streak, and if you commit suicide, you don't lose the streak.
So I guess maybe it's... If you're stomping on Storm and open Orchid, maybe it sort of makes sense to pick up a Bloodstone after. Maybe, usually, I don't know. Normally you just want to get a BKB or an Orchid, though, so I don't know. I don't see the point of this, but anyway.
That's true. It just makes an item for people who get it. It makes it better by a bit if people know how to use it. Moving on, Dagon. Recipe cost decreased by 50. Okay. We already talked about her earlier, and we talked about
Dust
Bottle
is
Earlier.
important. Huge
Dust now
buff
stacks
to
in
Bounty Hunter.
inventory, and now slows heroes with invisibility buff on them by 10%.
Well, the thing is with Lothars being so good and just being a great item, the move speed is so much that it's really hard to dust people and catch them. You just dust them and then they just run away. So the fact that it actually slows them now is a reason to carry Dust over Sentry when someone has a Lothars.
Do you think Icefrog should have like buffed up the heroes who have invisibility? Like Ricky's permanent invisibility should have given somebody like 5%, 10% move speed. Bounty Hunter's invisibility should give him 5 or 10%. Or
No, I think this is fine. I think he just gave buffs to those heroes, right? He buffed Ricky's Invis Fade Time and he buffed Bounty Hunter's Track. And he buffed Clink's by saying you can put more points in your Invis early because arrows is higher, right? He sort of fixed all those issues.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely pretty good against Shadowblade, to say the least. Moving on to E-Blade. Self or ally castration increased to 4 seconds. Okay, that exists. Movement speed... Our Yell Scepter, movement speed bonus increased from 30 to 35. Okay, that exists as well. I mean, people who pick up Yells will still probably like it. Nobody will prioritize Yells. Forest Staff got buffed. Not too sure why, but okay, it
Oh,
exists.
because it's terrible now.
Is it?
Well,
People still get it.
people get it. People don't get it on like Invoker or
Yeah.
mid-game carries anymore, like a Puck or stuff like that, because the attack speed and attack damage not being there is a huge deal. You only really get it on supports now. So for supports who were building it,
But that was sort of the intent of the change.
yeah, and the thing is, it was so pricey that supports couldn't get to it, and you're Rubik desperately trying to get the dagger or force, and you can't do it because it's so expensive. So I don't know.
I guess
feel
that's
like it
true.
should
You need
be-
to get 2 1,000 gold components. And
I think in this iteration it should be like 700 gold, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Gem of True Sight. Gem can no longer be destroyed, so there will be gem wars. Gold cost increased from 700 to 850. Interesting.
Ice Frog really wants people to use dust because people were just sick of that item and wouldn't get it. But I really like the dust change, and the gem change just means that you can actually have dust now, so it's kind of nice. Instead of late game, when your gem's dead, instead of having to buy like 6 sentry wards on your support hero, you can just buy dust now, and I think it's pretty cool.
Headdress of Rejuvenation AoE has been increased. Okay. Kaolin's Blink Dagger cooldown decreased. So that's obviously very good. We might see more heroes pick it up because
It's a big
cooldown-
deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure why you're buffing Dagger, but it does make for exciting games to say the least. But yeah, Linked Sphere cooldown decreased from 20 to 17. Okay, that exists.
This is why this is why I don't understand Ice Frog. He does something like, let's buff Blink Dagger, make games more exciting, and then he goes, let's buff Lincoln Sphere, make games less exciting.
Let's
I
buff
don't
Tree.
know.
Lothar's-
Lothar's Edge. Actually, on the real though, Lothar's Edge, that item I felt was way too good, gave way too much stats
I
for
agree.
what it provided.
I agree.
I would have preferred to actually see an attack speed reduction and leave the damage as is, but the damage reduction is fine.
Yeah,
I still think it's a really good item.
I agree. I think it's still perfectly fine on a lot of heroes, but the nerfs definitely help. So now it's not a no-brainer
Yeah.
because it's still a 3K item that doesn't really help you. It help you a lot in team fights, but I mean the stats definitely help you. Moving on to medallion cast range increased to 1,000. All right, so now supports who get it are not going to be in as big of a risky position. I think if people want to get medallion, they get it anyways. I don't know if this will really help it make more viable.
Yeah.
Maybe people will get like a medallion on a team, but other than that, I don't really see the point. Mechanism regeneration AoE increased. Okay. Buckler AoE has been increased. Just a bunch of consistency patches with those 3 items. Necronomicon armor type changed from heavy to hero, so that means creeps can't run ramp shot all over these necrobuck illusions as they were able to do before. And
Yeah.
I guess towers maybe as well. Null Talisman recipe cost decreased by 10, and you told me this is
Important.
actually a pretty big deal.
Who said this was a big deal?
You did.
I did. Okay. This is a really big deal for a lot of mid lane matchups. Specifically Puck and Queen of Pain. I don't know how to explain this in a succinct manner, but if you watch someone like Arteezy's stream, what he'll do is he'll bring himself a Null Talisman before actually getting a bottle. Like he'll use the courier to get it to himself because it helps you last hit so much. With it being decreased in 10, a lot of times you can get it 1 creep earlier, and it seems like such a small thing, but if you get it 1 creep earlier than the enemy mid, who's maybe is an agi hero or whatever and isn't gonna get this, you get like 5 last hits off of that you would have missed, and all of a sudden, boom, you're snowballing. Like Dota's a really cool game in that it starts off of really small things, but if you can get something literally 1 wave earlier, so it would be 15 seconds earlier, you can get so much more off of it, and I think this is a big deal. And people might make fun of me for overplaying such a small thing, but I really think that it's a fairly significant buff to Puck and Quap against heroes that aren't them, basically.
I have to agree with you because 10 gold actually does mean a decent amount.
In mid lane, like 1 creep can make
Yeah.
or break your lane.
Because you get
It really
experience
can.
advantage, if you get the level 6 a split second faster, suddenly you have the initiative to blink in or orb in and get a kill, and they're going to be level 5 and you're going to be level 7. So 1 creep definitely does make a difference in the mid lane. Radiant burn damage increased. Okay. Minor.
Spectre can maybe still pick it up after defusal.
I think it's still very good on Spectre. I don't know.
Yeah,
why.
you were telling me about that, and I actually agree with you.
I mean, the Asian scene still does it. Western scene has sort of went away from it. I think it's still very good on Spectre, and it's still very good to cancel Blink Daggers. I saw AUI pick it up recently on the Bear to cancel a dagger on Darkseer, something like that. Moving on to S and Y, everything is 16% except move speed, which is 12%. So making S and Y a bit better. It's already a decent item, but the thing about it is for its price, you can work your way towards better items in general. But it's nice
I
to
don't
see a
know.
buff.
I feel like this item's people are trending towards it now. Nakes buys it, and that's about it. But Nakes buys it, and that's someone. So
Yeah, when Razor's viable, he'll buy it.
yeah. Oh, I didn't even see this. Sentry Ward AOE decreased.
Yeah, that was another. That wasn't really a mechanics change, but it is significant because you can't really see as much, obviously, with your true sight vision. That's it.
Shadow Amulet. That's not a deal.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Admiral Bulldog, you're definitely gonna love this. I don't know if you saw the play, but they fucking 5-man ganked Bulldog and he used a Shadow Amulet. I think Shadow even used Disruption, and Admiral Bulldog popped the Shadow Amulet, and
I saw Fear hide in the lane on Bloodseeker to gank a Weaver with
Yeah,
this
yeah,
match.
I
He's
remember
so
that.
happy.
Those are the only two situations that Shadow Amulet was used besides its attack speed.
Shiva's Guard.
Shiva's Guard AoE decreased to 900. The attack speed reduction has been increased as well. I think heroes who get Shivas would still get it. I don't think this will promote new heroes to get it. It might make a difference in terms of the order, but honestly, it probably won't. Shivas is already a good
Dude,
item.
this is better now.
It is better, but like people who would pick it up anyways. I don't think anyone would go outside of their comfort zone to pick it up.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess Darkseer buff. That's about it.
Perhaps.
No one else really builds it.
Yeah.
Sorta Tinker, maybe. Not really. Stygian,
Armor?
Furion, Templar Assassin. So sometimes builds this. Who else builds this? Weaver builds
Weaver.
it.
Yeah.
It's
Veil
cool.
still exists in the game for some
Ice
reason.
Frog he just wants that to be a good item.
I mean, it could potentially be a good item, but you can just get so many other items. And that's pretty much it.
Two things that I wanted to talk about really quick.
Yep.
One is a bug fix, which is actually a big thing. And I'm pretty sure this refers to Dota 2.
The Ancients
I've
having
fixed an
backstory.
inconsistency with mana sharing on Tether. If you get a full magic wand on Tether, you don't share the mana, which is why a lot of times you leave it as a stick. So if that's actually referring to Dota 2, that's awesome. Another thing, fix the active component of Tranquil Boots being enabled on illusions. It wasn't, so when you're playing like a PL or Naga Siren, you could always tell which one was real just because it moved faster. Also,
I think backdoor region on the Ancients because there are actually games where people, like Team Liquid versus Fnatic, I think like 2 or 3 months ago,
yeah.
Liquid tried to go for the throne and the Ancient was actually regenning up, which is not the case in Dota 1 because the Ancient does not regen up.
Actually, there's more stuff here. I didn't even see this. Suicides are no longer going to give AoE bonus XP. That was an important bug. Oh shit! I just saw one that was important. Ancient Sickle Stone. Well, I'm missing it now, but there was another. Oh yeah, attack speed with Armlet and Spirit Bear. I forgot that this was a bug. People aren't going to build Armlet and Spirit Bear anymore. I think, just because I didn't know that was also getting addressed. Also, one more thing. This is really the most important thing in the entire patch. Swapping a hero you now random now costs you 100 gold. So I'm not going to name names, but those people in pubs who have one person random and then the other person picks like I don't know, Nakes, and then they swap the heroes, and then now you're getting laned with a random gold Nakes. It's in your face, like in your lanes. These people are going to have another thing coming, and that's the most important thing.
I have to agree. So overall, this patch, I'm a big fan. Captain's mode, I'm a big fan outside of the pick order. For certain heroes like Lone Druid, I don't think that was enough. But overall, I have to give this patch a thumbs up. Is this going to make huge differences to TI3? This is going to be the ending segment. This will last for all of 2 minutes because this patch long has gone on for way too long. Will this mean a bit of a difference in the metagame for TI3?
I think yes. I think people have been moving towards defensive tri-lanes as opposed to offensive tri-lanes recently. I think this patch is going to give them a push, especially with Necrolite. Keep an eye out for him. And all in all, I'm pretty sure that people are going to try to be a little bit more aggressive this patch.
And new picks to watch for you, it's Necrolite. I'll try to go out of the ordinary. Fuck. Pugna will be my choice.
Okay, there we go.
All right, thanks for everybody for watching. I'll probably put timestamps in the description because this lasted way too long, as it always does. But this was a significant patch log. Hopefully you enjoyed our analysis of the changes. Follow me on youtube.com/bbon773, facebook.com/bbon773, twitter.com/bbon773, shredkid, twitter.com/shredkiddota, and twitch.tv/shred_kid. Thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, no problem. And shout out to my friend Roger, who was in Skype with us for all of this, not saying anything, quiet as a mouse.
Shoutouts to Roger. All right, we'll see you next time. Peace.